Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Rajni. How are you?
Can't hear you. Please unmute yourself.
I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Please do mic test, sir.
Yes, I've done it. It's working. Hello. Check, 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 check. Hello, hello, hello. Speaker connected. Hello, hello. All good?
Sir, I can't hear you.
1 minute. Let me just check it up.
Yes, sir. Audible for me, sir.
There's something wrong at your side, Rajni. Can you just check it?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Oh, Dr. Lada, how are you?
Yes, sir. I'm good, sir.
Good, good, good. You're not able to hear? But they're able to hear. Looking Dr. Lada can hear. Lada, can you hear me now?
Yes,
I can hear you. Yeah. Now
No, it's
you're
okay. Okay. I think others they have some problem. It seems that it's a group unmute or group something is there.
okay. I'm sharing the screen. Is that visible? Your CV?
Yes.
Okay.
It's visible.
Okay.
Just you have to put it on the full screen. That's all. It's okay. Otherwise, it's okay.
So we'll just wait for Dr. Vakode to join. I think he's
Sure.
the chairperson. So
Okay.
I have requested him. And today is the 5th day, sir, for this
Very good.
quality improvement program.
Good.
So we've been having 4 wonderful days, good sessions we had.
Good.
Nice interactive sessions on COVID, on we had something about medical writing.
Okay, interesting.
And in some of the sessions we had as much as 89 to 90 participants.
Very good. Okay.
So officially there are about 35-40 teachers.
Okay.
Rest are research scholars.
Okay. Good. So your own scholars would be highly
benefited
by this, right? So.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we also had some international speakers because this is online mode.
Right.
So we could manage some international webinars as well, especially for Malaysia and Europe, UK, our time matches.
Very good. Otherwise, it goes to the end of the day or the early morning. Okay.
How are things there, sir? COVID clinical trial is going on well?
Going on. Getting some good results, but still we are yet to uncode. It's a randomized clinical trial. So we're supposed to uncode.
I'm not sure whether...
Who is handling it? Who is handling? You're handling or Lata is handling?
As in today's session, who's the moderator? Dr.
No, admission. Admit who is doing admission? Admission who is doing?
Sachin has to do one today.
Okay.
Good morning, I think Dr. Sachin is doing it.
Oh,
good morning,
wonderful.
everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dipti. How are you?
I'm good, sir. You recognize my voice.
Yes. Now, the moment I hear your voice, enough to recognize who is that. This much
so
of
nice to have you, sir. So nice to have you today.
Yes, I'm very happy, Dipti.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see you in the different platform. That's what the most.
Yes, the virtual one.
Now. Dipti the same. Dipti is full happiness. Loaded to DIPSAR. Very good.
Yes. Like all is normal in AIMS now?
Ames is always normal.
Okay.
Abnormal is only the people.
We keep defining normal.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So you're at the forefront.
Oh no.
He's on four fronts.
Four
Yes.
friends. You need to have 4 friends to do all the things. Better be a little safe. See
Yeah.
what do you need more? I have diabetes. I'm obese. I have diabetes, and I'm having hypertension. I'm having asthma.
Oh my God.
So they say you keep far away, but you support me at the from the far end. That's why.
Sir, kada piyo, sir, kada. You
Oh,
take.
Rajni, जो आना है आके जाने दो बस that's all.
I can't see Dr. Vakode.
Pakode is
I'll
having
just call him up.
Like, was there any issue with the, like, what is the problem coming? Because I think Dr. Sachin is host today.
Is there any announcement when universities are going to start functioning physically?
He's just joining. I think I can see him there. He's just joining.
Do you know when? Is there any official announcement when?
Not yet, sir. Not yet. Actually, like they were told that 21st September onwards, research scholars will be allowed.
Right.
But not on the regular classes. No intimation.
So I mean, from November there was something like somebody has told me that UGC has sent a letter to start the colleges from November.
Sir, we have no idea actually.
Okay.
Like maybe they are just rumors unless the official letter comes.
Okay.
So.
Good morning, sir.
कौन आया है?
Good morning, Velpati ji.
Oh, good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning,
Pakode,
madam.
sir.
Yeah, please. It's very
Good morning,
nice to
sir.
see you. Good morning, Lakshmi. Good morning, Vicky, madam.
Still, we are happy to see online.
Good morning.
Yeah.
So, sir, if you will allow Vakode, sir, I will just formally start the session and then you can take it.
Yeah.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to the fifth day of the 33rd Quality Improvement Program. You will agree with me that we've been having very nice interactive webinars from some of the top of the class speakers. Today is going to be another such day. We have with us some eminent speakers and chairpersons. I welcome the chairperson for the morning half, Dr. Sharad Vakode. He needs no introduction. He is an eminent pharmaceutical chemistry professor at Delhi Pharmaceutical Sciences and Research Center. And he has guided many MPharm students and PhD students, and he has generated a lot of extramural funds. His contribution to the university in the field of in silico research is immense. I welcome you, sir, and request you to take the platform.
Thank you, madam. Good morning, all the delegates, and we welcome Professor Velpandian sir for this
Thank you.
important talk, and all the delegates. It is a really wonderful session. It will be definitely as usual, as Dr. Velpandian also need not to have a formal introduction because everybody knows in the pharmacology field what Dr. Velpandian is and what type of research activities he is involved. So, in short, I just wanted to introduce him. Dr. Velpandian is presently a professor and in charge of ocular pharmacology and pharmacy division in the RP Center, AIMS. Dr. Velpandian works specifically in the ocular pharmacokinetics with the special reference to the contribution of xenobiotic transporters in blood ocular barriers. There are so many awards to his name, especially Biotechnology Ignition Grant Scheme, BIG, in 2019 from BIRAC, Professor Venkat and Reddy Oration, ARVO India, Chapter 2019, AIMS Excellent Award for the year 2014, 2015, 2016, 3 years continuously. Dr. Vinod Kumar Bhargava Award 2014, DR Bajaj Award, and Professor G.K. Pal Award by the Association of Physiologists and Pharmacologists of India. He also received Survivor Young Scientist Award by Institute de Research International Services Survivor, France, ICPT 21. Dr. Velpandian has guided more than 55 students for the PhD, MD, DM, MPharm, MSc type of thesis work. And he has got more than 135 original research articles in the peer-reviewed journals and has filed 9 patents and granted 2 patents. Dr. Velpandian is editor pharmacology of Indian Journal of Physiology and Pharmacology section, editor of Ocular Pharmacology, Indian Journal of Ophthalmology. He is member of IHPA, Delhi Ophthalmological Society, Indian Eye Research Group, and the Association of Research in Vision and Ophthalmology, USA. So, Dr. Velpandian is a very known figure in the field of pharmacology, especially ocular pharmacology, and he has developed his labs because generally in regular routine, when offline mode is there for the QIP, whenever pharmacology QIPs are there, we generally try to visit the lab of Dr. Velpandian, which is very well maintained, and all the research atmosphere you can see there itself, how pharmacology, pharmaceutics, chemistry people are working together with his best into instrumentation lab, as well as with the new techniques which he has developed. So we are missing that, sir, definitely this year. But I hope
You're always welcome.
all the delegates will have a nice feast with your lecture itself. Thank you, sir. Please, I request you to start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Professor Okade. He's my best friend, so he always talks too much about me.
You deserve it, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me to give this talk. It's always my pleasure to participate in QIP programs, especially whenever DIPSAR organize. Almost by default, I just given the option of calling me, inviting me, and I always happy to. But this is a way through which I could communicate to my peer group, working peer group faculty members working at different institutes. I think the best way is that train the trainers. So that's the best way to reach or to improve anything inside in this country. We need to train the trainers. So QIP gives such a platform to do such a type of job. So I'm very happy about the same, right? So let me just, today's presentation is a little interesting one. For me, it's a most exciting one. I hope yes, my screen is clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Good. So thank you very much. So today I'm going to discuss with you about biointelligence, which is a buzzword right now for in most of the institutions, India or abroad, because we are now drenched with artificial intelligence. So somebody, we call that somebody is having intelligence or not intelligent, but now we have to face something different, that is artificial intelligence. To be more precise, when it comes to pharmaceutical sciences or it comes to health sciences at large, we call it as biointelligence. Somewhere biology is involved. Through biology, you're trying to connect people. Therefore, biointelligence is a little more customized terminology. When we started working on AI, really, we were not really into AI. We never felt that we are working at AI, but we were working on something to solve a problem by using mathematics. But now all of them group together, group inside, or took shelter inside a big umbrella, that is artificial intelligence. Whenever you try to understand a system, it's artificial intelligence. So now let me just take you through this whole area about it. And don't worry that I'm not going in too much in detail. Perhaps this 1 hour lecture may not be adequate enough to discuss those things. We should individually, we need to pursue these things to know about how to go individually to solve our problem. So my idea is that some of you might have heard it, somebody is working on it, and somebody who is yet to think about it to work upon AI, or something know a little bit about it. So for all of them, let me just try to give a little overview and to the specific account that our contribution to AI. So we just talk about it so that you can pursue this on a right time. In 2000, in the 21st century, in 2020, artificial intelligence is the in thing, like any other field, right? So now, when did this all thing started? When it started affecting us? There are two cover pages I put it here. One is the week, and another one is nature. See, the nature front cover is addressing a system, a problem. That means it's important for us in understanding. So that first it started in 1997. I think some of you must be knowing, and some of you may be in a younger age or to understand this. But we were super excited to listen to that the Garry Kasparov in 1997, the world chess champion, was facing a computer algorithm, that IBM supercomputer. He has been there was a challenge. He challenged the artificial intelligence by a human brain. So in the first round, Kasparov won. So we were all very happy that. But the second time and third time, when they came with the more improvised algorithm, I still remember that Deep Blue was the computer, the name of the computer in which he was facing. See, what in 1997, it was a big blow on human intelligence. So that first Kasparov was beaten by a set of hard-coded rules and brute force computing power of computer, brute force computer. So almost human intelligence failed in front of a computer. So what this computer is trying to understand, how it involves it started the whole curiosity to beat the human brain started only in 1997. Ever since that, continuously this was progressing on, and till last year, AlphaGo has learned. There's a Google AlphaGo. So there's a program. There's a computer program. I mean, it's a play, right? It's a very famous game. We use it on boards, right? So this AlphaGo is a computer which was playing against this player. That fellow lost it. He was a former Go champion who lost the game with DeepMind. This is and the AI algorithm was called as AlphaGo. Therefore, when he lost it again, once again, it was completely Einstein that completely confirmed that now human intelligence is something it is failing in front of for artificial intelligence. So this is, he retired in last 2019. So that he could not stand before it, and he said that the former Go, this came in the tabloid, that former Go champion beaten by DeepMind retires after declaring AI is invincible. So now slowly, this is coming into our daily life. How much to the daily life? When you define artificial intelligence, it's a field of science and engineering concerned with computational understanding of what is commonly called intelligent behavior, and with the creation of artifacts that exhibit such behavior. Now, what happens is that we have two scenarios here. I think most of both the pictures are very comfortable to you. One is gladiator. The well-trained gladiator is facing a tiger. On the other side, I think you must be remembering the sad story when onlooker just fell inside the zoo and he was about to face the same tiger. See, in both the cases, what you understand is that one, a man is trying to superpower a system and a strong system. Another side is that the superpower is overpowering the human intelligence. Somewhere this is coming to our real picture, and now we are a party to that, and we are involving in that. We try to understand the system to optimize the system for our benefit. But let us take a good side, that let's try to work for a betterment of human. Today, how many of you know that silently your mobile phone is listening to you? So, today, mostly people are so much happy to show their phone, that their mobile phone, Android phones, or it could be a Mac phone, Apple. They are very expensive phones with a lot of processing speed, having high internet. So everything, your gadgets are highly powered to handle a lot of intelligent things, but you are using that gadget as a simple talking machine, a telephone. I mean, I don't think we even use this intelligence which is there in that machine, what you carry all the time. Now, what is happening is you are carrying an intelligent object with you that is constantly following you. You know that this came in a British tabloid, that is Sun, reported this few years back, and that was literally shocking to me. See that the parallel Android, how Google is secretly recording you through your mobile, monitoring millions of conversations every day and storing the creepy audio files. All what you need to know is that open your mobile, keep the internet on, just open the mobile from the lock, and you say, okay, Google, just do it. Just keep it on your table and say, okay, Google. Immediately the light will start, the phone will be active, and it will ask you, how can I help you? They say, what is your name? It will tell you what is your name. I mean, it'll answer. Who are you? It'll talk to you. I mean, the Google Assistant, what you see in Google is listening to you, whatever you talk. If you kept your internet on, that means you are completely, it is recording what you're talking. So now what's happening is, if you wanted to know how much you are being followed, all what you need to do is, you log into your Google and Google main page of Google, just log into the Gmail account and type history.google.com/history and just put it into a web browser. It will show you what all the things have been recorded. You will be astonished to see what all the things being there, where you went there. I mean, what all this your videos you watched, what all the YouTube videos you have watched, and what all the searches you have made, and everything is there, and what all the commands you did, everything is there in this history. That means somebody is completely following you with your permission. That is what the intelligence is all about. So the question is, what are they going to do with this knowledge? If I know you fully, what is your interest? What is your likings? What are your likings? What is what are all the things you are searching for? So slowly, that Google will optimize it, and it will be keep on giving the feed to you to watch only such things. If you are just trying to, so you can see that. So if you are having a specific liking, you are being trying to search for something in YouTube, and your Google in your Android phone, you will always see such a type of videos are surfacing, and they are waiting for you to see. So this is what it is learning. So what this, you are giving opportunity to the other person to know what you want. Therefore, that will become a business opportunity for somebody. Ultimately, nothing comes free. See, whenever you buy a gadget, you get a cloud space free. So have you ever asked, where is this cloud? Where the data is being stored, and what are they going to do with the data? So after some time, after 18 months, this data will be anonymized and will be sent somewhere, or some of the Trojan viruses which you embed in your system, they are keep on sending data to some destination. And what are they going to do? Now they are looking forward to individualize you. And there are, the excellent Hollywood movies. You could see some of them. I think, you could try it out. There are some good movies. It tells you that some of these webcasts or the movies which are coming in Netflix, they're all on the same thing. I must tell you about the Netflix story about it also. Netflix did a wonderful thing. That Netflix story was wonderful, a wonderful utility of AI. So what these guys have done beautifully, Netflix is showing the pictures or feature films or web serials, etc. But what they have done is they have done something astonishing. Again, I must tell you that this is something which is really, really, really touching you. What they have done is that when you watch Netflix as individually, say how you run a Netflix. For you running a Netflix, you need a computer, you need to have internet. When you log into the internet, suppose today you are having a smart TV. In smart TV, already embedded your Gmail account and you logged in. Therefore, that Android comes active. In Android, when it become active, then what happened is that when you connected this to Netflix, you must have purchased the license and you must have paid for it. Now everything is known. Now what the Netflix has done is that when you are running a program, in the background, they monitored which are all the places you stopped, which are all the places you rewind the sequence and watched again, where you fast forwarded, where you watched, which type of serials you saved and seen, how many times you have seen. All this data has been sent to these people, those who are producing such films. So what happened is, the important scene you watched it twice, thrice, or 4 times, or more times, whatever you watched, and the one you fast forwarded has been taken, what you like, what you don't like. So majority of people like, majority of people don't like. So this is being taken into the production team, and they optimize the rest of the sequence according to your liking. As a result, they have constantly been fed. You are constantly fed with what you like. As a result, you are getting slowly addicted. It's really speaking, it's kind of create a reinforcement with yourself. You get addicted towards that, and that's how it goes on. So you see, it could be Cortana, or could be Alexa, or could be Google, or Naya of Infosys, Siri of Mac, and Salesforce, Einstein, and Watson is a IBM AI platform. And most of the automobile manufacturers could be BMW, Otax Harley, or Harley Davidson. Everybody, they started using AI to handle such a type of thing. Now what happens really? So according to the data science applications, you see that e-commerce, where are all the places the AI being used? E-commerce platforms, of course, when you try to buy anything from Amazon, you will be keep getting when you're in the Amazon algorithm. Just try to learn what are your preferences, what you want, and based upon it, it creates an algorithm and it goes to this. And thereby, you will easily get what you are searching for without any efforts. So thereby, they increase their sales very comfortably. So of course, that there is always, there is a lag, what you want and what you're not getting. So that is being met. So e-commerce, in which it is, sometimes we look for such a type of thing also. But manufacturing, yes, in manufacturing, we predict potential problems. So in a large scale manufacturing, in automated machines, you look for a system automatization in which there are some problems are constantly encountered. So when you bring AI into that, that problem is getting solved. Automatic manufacturing units are now getting into AI completely. Maintenance scheduling and anomaly detection. So sometimes the manufacturing in the product are going very fast. So in which you are really at a second that you're getting thousands of, for example, let us take your pharmaceutical industry. In industry, see, you'll always do a visual examination about, for example, you're looking for a chipping in the or a coating, a color coating, any type of bleeding or a chipping in the coating process. No more, you need to go for visual inspection on all these things. Continuously in the conveyor belt, every tablet is going on. When the tablet has been made, when it is going through a conveyor belt, within that short gap, this has been taken, a high resolution photography is taken, and it is been compared with the pixels are being, I'll show you in a few minutes how this process is done. It's just analyzed within a fraction of a second. Even before this tablet goes into the bin, the tablet is rejected. Therefore, the productivity, the quality of product is so good, and you achieve a maximum, minimum human interferences you see in this anomaly detection. And in banking, what happens is that today you understand that many of us are very comfortable with banking systems today. Everything is running through Android. Android phone handles a lot of banking applications. Now, there's so much of internet processes involved. Yeah, fraud detection is also again a big problem. So all of a sudden, if somebody is logging into somebody's account and taking it out, so you cannot verify several bank records. See, when you are taking a bank passbook, one could just see the clerk will say, well, this much amount credited, this is debited. But electronic transactions, at a stretch, thousands and thousands of millions of transactions are going through a bank. And this is going through ATM, you are withdrawing cash. And you are putting the cash, you are transferring money to somebody, he is transferring it to somebody, all everywhere. What's happening? Only digital signatures are getting created. Now, in between the digital signatures, the fraudsters easily do such a type of frauds, or mainly credit card, cloning the credit card, or using it to using the cloned credit card to take the transactions. All these things comes under a fraud detection, where again AI is used. When you try to use AI, it automatizes the whole process, and it understands the somewhere in system something is going wrong. Sitting at Bangalore today, a computer analyst is now looking forward for what is the fault which is happening. A car which is running, a BMW car running at the streets of London. So it's easy that from there the AI is just trying to do it, and the whole data is being managed by their servers to handle it. It's everything is being completely coming into the internet. In the healthcare, the same way that your image analysis, especially image analysis, in medical image analysis, now we started using this kind of systems in health sciences. Drug discovery, this is what we are going to highlight a little bit here, because this is what our cup of tea is all about. Bioinformatics, I will not call bioinformatics, which is much different, highly useful for all the places, whether it is coming for whether it is coming inside the pharmaceutical field, or it is coming inside any other field. AI, bioinformatics is always inbuilt in between molecular biology, research field, or in case of drug discovery series. In all the cases, bioinformatics play a vital role. Virtual assistants. Virtual assistants, yeah, I'm not very sure whether all of you are aware of this, but there is a Google app called ADA. Okay, you can download this ADA. If you have not downloaded, do it today as a healthcare professional. So when you use ADA, the ADA is a virtual doctor. All you just have to say that it goes with an algorithm. I'll explain in a few minutes. So what you call it, just ask you a few questions. You just answer that question. It goes to the level 2. Again, it will ask you question. Go to the level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As a result, at the end of it, it diagnoses what type of problem you have. So now virtual doctor is coming as a virtual assistant again into healthcare. And the transport, self-driving cars. Today, I think some of you must have seen in TVs, self-driving cars, and most of the transport vehicles which are used in combat situations are using enhancing passenger safety, safety of passengers. All the places again AI is coming into picture. Finance is huge way AI is coming to picture, where what they're trying to do is in the trades, especially when it is happening on the share market. In the share market, that the strategy decision making, or in case of huge investment strategy decision making, or in case of calculating the failures, or type of the strength of the place where you can investment opportunity. All these places, see, these all making the person who is rich by richer, richest. And I cannot say that whether can it make the poor as a poorest, but definitely it is also giving opportunity for the producers. See, basically it is connecting two ends. One side you have people have a lot of people have good finances to buy things. Another side, the things are not bought. As a result, the money is stored somewhere. So the whole circumstance in which the both ends are met, then obviously the distribution of money can happen properly. I don't know really what is a real situation, or what will be the end output for it, but let us be very optimistic about it. So now what's happening is, let's go more in detail about this. What is this artificial intelligence? How these things are different? So you can divide, you can just somehow segregate some aspect of artificial intelligence, like machine learning, deep learning, and data sciences. Let us understand what is this machine learning and deep learning. What is machine learning? Machine learning is something like you are trying to create some sort of system, and that makes the machine. That's what you call here is that they're not necessary that you need to handle a huge systems, but it can just help. It's a small algorithm is developed, and it is embedded in a machine that can do a service that can handle such a type of problems. For example, you can divide this into three categories. That is supervised machine learning. Another one is unsupervised machine learning, reinforcement machine learning. So what is the supervised, unsupervised? I'll talk a little later. Then just see the main headings of artificial intelligence. Next is deep learning. What is deep learning? Deep learning is something that it's been fascinated by the way how human brain works. The human brain is always, you're fascinated that how memory takes place, how emotions are developing, how much is the developmental neurobiology is giving support for your understanding and intelligence. All these things are always fascinating things for human to learn. So the neurobiology, when it has been developing over the period of time, especially brain physiology and brain neuronal functions, slowly this fascinated people, and they start understanding. So it's very simple in electronics, the way that IC works. I think all of you must be remembering what is this integrated circuits. Before integrated circuits, we had something called transistors. From transistors, you got into logic gates. So the gate phenomena, Nanda or gates, I think all of you must be remembering, you must have read it in your schools. These gate mechanisms were embedded inside the IC, then it started producing outputs much bigger than that of what is expected from a transistor. Now the ICs, many ICs brought inside a small processor. When Intel Pentium processor first time it came out, we were all so much super excited how the capability of such systems. I still remember working with 33 megahertz clock system to today 2.3 gigahertz or 4.3 gigahertz system. There's a huge difference the way that the clock speed of computer is concerned. So now when you come to deep learning, you get into artificial neural network. The artificial neural network is always deals with data as numbers, data with numbers. So look, data science is something. For example, let me tell you a few things. I hope that you must have used Google Lens, right? I think if you have not used, try it out. So you just take from your mobile phone, the same Android system. If you have a picture, when you just open the picture and there is a small icon of Google Lens comes inside, just press it. It immediately search forward for such a type of image and tell you what is that image. This is a small Google Lens attribute you have in a mobile phone. But artificial network, see, this is here something which is different. For example, you are trying to search for some numbers. You're doing analysis with numbers. with a small set of numbers. Maybe, for example, you are trying to do a statistics between two data sets. You have taken anti-inflammatory activity of something, and you are comparing between the two groups of rats. It is something a very small size, right? You have a n is equal to 6, another n is equal to 6. You're going to use a statistics software for comparison of the for the presence of significance. Whereas when it comes to 1 million data points, 1 million data. For example, let's think about people, those who are infected with corona, you are having the data about their weights, and you wanted to compare between India and somewhere India is a tropical country, where you wanted to compare with a cold country. Maybe you take Germany, and you wanted to compare, and you wanted to ask the question of whether obese people are susceptible for corona or not. So now this kind of question cannot be addressed by simply just putting it on Excel spreadsheet or by using a student t-test. This needs a a bigger platform. But still, I would say this is again data. The data is numbers, right? Some number, some sizable form, right? It's coming into weight is 25 kg, 75 kg, 80 kg. It's all coming in kg with there's a quantum of numbers. But when it comes to analysis of images, a Google Lens image, it has to use a different type of algorithm. So there came that convolution neural network. It does image analysis, live feeds, videos. So for example, that in China, there's some sort of an image analysis, artificial intelligence they use it. The moment somebody is walking on the street, and there's a camera over there, it picks up and it recognizes who is walking. And everywhere. You can't do anything, any mistake anywhere, you are caught. So everything is being linked, and it's image analysis softwares are working. Similarly, in forensic analysis, if there is a theft, if there is a crime, again the police uses that kind of image the network, so that using that algorithm that they try to figure it out who is that person. So now it's a one which we are using in our security cameras at home, or we are using anywhere else. These kind of algorithms are capable of searching billions of data points in few minutes or an hour of time. So this is where that another type of deep learning is coming into the picture. So not even deep learning, now we have other things like recurrent neural network. See, basically that the moment, if you understand about artificial neural network hypothesis, there are several mild modifications in this kind of networks. So neural network analogy, so that they develop different type of architecture to handle different data points. So that and then we have some more advanced network like mask or CNN is another advanced network. Although I'm not going in detail about it, but definitely I will explain you how the artificial neural network in basics, how it works, then you will be able to understand how others are. So altogether, you take machine learning, deep learning, along with the mathematics like statistics, calculus, probability, linear algebra, or Boolean algebra, you put it all together, it's called data science. It's not only ML or DL, along with other things like mathematics. Altogether, it comes as a data science. So now you understand about what is machine learning, what is deep learning. I mean, machine learning is much more a simpler form. I'll explain you how things are. If the task you can do it today with a very simple, by using your personal computer, you'll be able to do it, and many of them are free. You'll be able to use that. So the main machine learning, as I told you, it's again divided into the types, as I told you: unsupervised learning, supervised learning, reinforcement learning. The reinforcement learning is also called as a semi-supervised learning. A little bit of supervision is required. So when it comes to supervised learning, when you just get into more in detail, so for example, identified fraud detection, image classification, customer retention, or diagnostics, all these places supervised learning is working. When it comes to classification, supervised classification. For example, you have to make the system understand two data sets. One data set is this, another data set is this. I'll show you a small example, that the one which we worked on, so you can understand about what is supervised learning. And in supervised and regression type, so you to see, very simple. You try to calculate the amount of unknown concentration of something something you quantified by spectrophotometer. For example, let us take this way. And you wanted to, or you are trying to understand about the unknown quantity of protein which is present in a solution. So what you obviously do is that you use Lowry's protein analysis method, and you try to quantify the amount of proteins in that. So when you try to understand how much it is there in the unknown, what you do is that you plot a graph, and through graph you try to understand. In the graph you use direct extrapolation, or you from the slope. The moment when you try the slope, again the process starts. The simple could be a linear regression. And the linear regression, it trying to create a straight line between the data points. It tries to plot that. First one is that you are having direct correlation. Y is equal to X. 1 is 1 or 2 is 2. When you are weighing a kg of potato, you are using 1 kilogram of weight on the counterweight, and you are trying to batch the balance. That is equal to Y is equal to X. When you try to do Y is equal to MX, when you see the calibration curve, and then when you put a calibration curve, the calibration curve hits 0 of your Y and X axis. When it comes to 0 value, both Y is equal to 0, X is equal to 0, then you will use a formula Y is equal to MX. M is a slope and X is the value. You put Y is equal to MX. The value of X is multiplied by the slope to represent the value of Y. When it comes to little more complicated system, where X and Y is not starting from 0, you put another value addition that is equal to X. The intercept you put it, that is equal to Y is equal to MX plus C. The C is coming as a constant, which is added to that. Now the complication starts. Then you go into the quadratic equation. When in a quadratic equation, again quadratic equation is trying to create a parabola, and now in quadratic equation the problem starts. So the quadratic equation, the X value is always, Y value is always plus or minus. It could be plus or minus. The complication starts from quadratic equation, which normally we don't use it to understand about the linear dynamics or linear correlation between the systems. But why, if it is a simple Y is equal to MX, Y is equal to X, or Y is equal to MX, or Y is equal to MX plus C, till then you use your simple graph pad, or you use computer, or you use anything to calculate this kind of thing. So the supervised learning, in which you are having a huge data point and you're asking the system to understand that this is the set of data, and this set of data is obtained from a group of subjects, and I wanted that the whole system to adjust based upon this. Suppose if it is taking multilinear correlation, multilinear regression, and you say that number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, each data is having 4 variables. For example, if a person is having diabetes, a person is having hypertension, a person is having asthma, a person is having this much of weight, all these things you are put together as a single person. Now you cannot use a straight line equation, Y is equal to MX, or Y is equal to MX plus C, or Y is equal to X. You need to use much more sophisticated application where it comes multilinear regression, where your supervised learning, you try to fit the values accordingly. Now, when you plot it, it will plot so beautifully. Again, Y is equal to MX type of equation, but is plotted by several variables. It is trying to predict the value of Y. Now, unknown X, you put it, if your credibility is very good, immediately it will tell you what will be the value of Y automatically. So this is a way, but the X you have to give a calibration. Now you ask the question whether this person is having, this person is having a body weight of 40, he is not hypertensive, and he is having hypercholesterolemia. How can he get this kind of problem? This question is addressed by this kind of, but it is again supervised learning. What is unsupervised learning? Unsupervised learning is again used in 2 main divisions through which we can classify them. One is a dimensionality reduction. Another one is clustering of data. Clustering of data is, for example, that as the simplest example to understand unsupervised learning is, so there are images that are inside, or images you don't have a dimension for an image, but when you try to convert that image into some sort of a linear vector, or you try to convert this into few numbers. So converting an image into number, how is it possible? It is possible. For example, you can convert a chemical structure into few numbers if you understand few of the developments in the sector. And I mean, I will explain this later when I have some examples to teach about it. Then it comes to machine learning is a reinforcement learning. For example, that you must have played Prince of Persia. Prince of Persia, you are continuously going from one step to second step, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. When you keep on going in the level up, the hardness of the level increases a lot. So basically, there it uses the reinforcement learning. That system tries to understand what type of thing that you are doing it. You are very quick in using the sword. So the sword, the person who is standing over there using the sword, his way of approach is different. Now that is being optimized. So from where you have something, you are trying to use it, and it learns. As the first example, as I told you, you know what they have done when in the second one, in which they were trying to the AlphaGo game. AlphaGo game, the first one supercomputer when they used against Kasparov for the chess, it was man-made. And you will not believe in 2016, first time this AlphaGo when it was made, you know how they made it? It's so interesting. They made a computer and it's supposed to have, it's a supervised learning. Now what happened is they took two computers and the two computers will be start using the same algorithm. They start learning from each other. That means a machine is playing against another machine. Now you see the type of algorithm it is trying to create it, through which they mastered that algorithm, that is AlphaGo. So you understand that how the way you try to, the whole the gimmick is that you try to convert any image into some numbers, and the numbers should be, because you know all the fundamental of the whole computer system is binary code, and everything has to be converted into number or some strings which can be converted into numbers, and the numbers can be used as a binary code to do the job. So everywhere it is, the data science is only numbers, numbers, and it can be converted to binary strings. So the process which are used for it is coming under the intelligence part. You input an image, the image is getting extracted by CNN, that is a neural network, sort of a neural network, converted network. The image as arrays. This array is now used as for sequential learning, and then it is processed to give output string. Now, if you show an apple, that the system learns that is an apple because the apple image is getting converted into pixels, and the pixels are being converted into linear vectors, and the linear vector has been cased as numbers and been fed. Now, it searches against the similar type of strings. Wherever it finds, again, it comes out and say, this is apple. That's how the artificial intelligence works out. As I told you, the supervised machine learning, in which all data are labeled, and the algorithm is learned to predict the output from input data. So what data you give, from there the algorithms are getting created. For example, let me show you the data which we have created. That is, we work on QSPR, that is quantitative structure property relationship. Now, quantitative structure property relationship, you take a structure, you get into its quantum properties. In quantum properties, you have several physical inputs or chemical structure inputs or quantum property input. You've got a lot of physical. You have a chemical structure, it has a particular molecular weight, it has a particular log p value, it has got a particular ionization constant, it is having a molar molecular volume, and it is having a hydrophilicity or hydrophobicity. You try to but that can be done by log p alone, and it can be done. Apart from that, there could be several, like for example, quantum parameters. Talk about HOMO-LUMO values of it. That is the unoccupied outermost orbital, valency of but reactability, or its oxidation or redox potential. All these are considered as input for a chemical data, and with this you try to look forward to predict the action of the molecule. So this is where you come into picture and you try to take biointelligence. For example, this is the property of this molecule. Can this molecule will be of any use in particular biological application? If you go back and understand Lipinski's rule, Lipinski, I think all of you guys are very comfortable with Lipinski rule, or you call it as a rule of five. Rule of five again came from some sort of artificial intelligence. How a molecule look like? A molecule which is capable of penetrating well inside the intestine. How are the molecules supposed to look alike? See, this is not completely about chemistry. This is something to do with pharmaceutics. You, based upon this, you try to design, you try to classify the molecule, is whether it is highly lipid soluble or highly water soluble, and what you try to classify. Pharmaceutics classification comes into picture. Then it comes to pharmacology, and you try to look into the biological activity of it. So as a pharmacologist, my interest is on the absorption of this compound or the transfer of these compounds across biological barriers. Therefore, but what I will do is that supervised learning, I will take a group of molecules, I will try to take out all their data about the chemical data, about the about its chemical properties or physical properties. I'll try to list it. I'll try to create a biological activity. To take both the activities, I put together and I try to create an algorithm. Now, this algorithm is a supervised algorithm because I know I'm putting the input data, which is completely I created. I know this is a molecule and this is known to have this property. I know this molecule, this is having this property. I'm putting all of them. I'm trying to see all of their physical configuration or chemical nature and the quantum properties. And I'm having again a test set of compounds having similar type of activity. I take their logics. I'll take all the parameters of them as an input parameter. I'm going to put it in the algorithm I have generated by the supervised input. And if it fits very well, then I got it. So this is a simple way. So like this, we have decision tree, naive Bayes, random forest, logistic regression, and okay, and then this I discussed a little later. All these things nearer, k nearer. So these are all the things which are coming under supervised machine learning. Unsupervised, as I told you, all data is unlabeled, and algorithms learn the inherent structure of the input data. So what happened when you try to keep on putting some sort of, for example, you have a data, you are continuously putting data. It is trying to develop, the algorithm is trying to develop based upon some characteristics. What is coming as a square. So for example, that any object which is coming in the square, so it tries to bring it into one bin. So based upon it, it tries to do it. So the clustering data of k-mean clustering, hierarchical clustering, DB clan clustering, these kind of algorithms have been developed to unsupervised machine learning. See, Flipkart uses this kind of algorithm because Flipkart sells millions of products online. So it doesn't know which product you are interested in. And they don't know, they don't want to individually characterize it. So what you do is that you are keep on buying few things that in the algorithm is getting created in the Flipkart. So what is your interest in buying things? So based upon it, other patterns will be coming in. That is why when you see in your suggested suggestions comes for you, you see something which you never searched, all of a sudden is coming into this, but you will be thinking that what is its relevance to me? And you will also think that maybe it's a promotional strategy. But yes, it's a promotional strategy, but of the unsupervised ML. Unsupervised ML, machine learning have these kind of problems. Well, continuously data science scientists are working on it to improvise more and more. So the day by day, things are improving. Semi-supervised or reinforcement ML, the some data is labeled, but most of them are unlabeled, and the mixture of supervised and unsupervised technique can be used. So basically, the learns from mistakes, level of complexity decreases as it learns, as I told you about Prince of Persia game. In supervised learning, for example, decision tree. If you just get into ADA, the software which is it's free, download it. You can test it also. That if you're having a cough, then you just say I'm having cough. It'll ask you that what type of cough? Is it deep cough or it is a superficial cough? Are you having a running nose? So these kind of questions will be coming. So you answer the question. Similarly, the moment you go to your physician, he will ask you this question: how are you? Then he will take basic stats. Are you having fever? Increased fever? You yourself say, oh, I'm having mild fever. Well, very fine. You said, open your mouth, look into the tonsillitis, if you're having tonsillitis or not, or how long you are suffering from this. It is chronic. If you are having fever and it is not having running nose, he'll ask you, when are you getting fever? In the morning or in the evening? Oh, in the evening. Then you'll think that, oh, that we know that some type of fevers like tuberculosis, the fever typically comes in the evening. So is it something like that? So now it goes to the next decision. So the sequence of questions, if you are answering, that is going to make the decision. For example, you are having headache. For example, decision tree, it is supervised learning algorithm. So now you are having this whole algorithm, you only set it. It is supervised. So now you see decision tree, headache. You're having headache. Yeah. So you go and ask for it. Are you having fever? The question comes. Say that yes or no. You say yes. If you're having, you're having fever. If you're having yes, then it is asking, do you have cough? You say yes. It says it is bad. Don't come to office today because it is suspecting you might be having corona. Are you having a fever and you say no, but high BP? No. Are you having high BP? So no. If it is yes, and it puts you a bad. And if we are having no, it says good. But second algorithm, we are not much bothered. But first algorithm, the good is something you can come to office or don't come to office, right? So it's just, you don't have fever, but you are having headache. The headache could be increased blood pressure. If it is yes, it is bad. But now thing is that you must go and see a doctor. That is the output file. So input is, your headache is the input. The decision tree is asking first question, fever. Now this algorithm, you can make it and you can put it in your employees that somebody is telling that I am having headache, I want to leave. Oh, very good. So you have a fever? Yes. Do you have a cough? Yes. Don't come to office. So it is the end of it. You might have corona. Go and check for corona. Or if you're having fever, no, I don't have fever, but I have headache. Oh, check for your BP. The BP is high. Oh, yes, you're having BP is high. You must see the doctor or you take your BP medicine. Or no, it's good. It's okay. You can come to office. Your headache could be stress related headache. If you come to office today, I won't give much of work to you. So you relax today. Or I'll give more work. So you're used to the headache. So anything is possible. Either if you have headache, give more headache. So it will be used to it. So headache is normal for him. So this decision tree is used for live weather feeds from different locations, latitude, longitude, temperature, water level, wind, other seasons. The historical weather data publicly available. All these things are used for making a decision tree. For example, humidity. For example, that the humidity level is very high. If you see the weather report in your Google, it will say there is a chance of 30% precipitation. Have you seen it? If not, let's check it. Then you see in your computer, in your mobile phone, you just click on the weather report, say today have a clear sky, but then some of the days say that it is a cloudy sky and sweaty. It is 20 degrees centigrade, but 25 degrees centigrade feel like 32, or 35 degrees centigrade feel like 42. The moment you say 35 feel like 42 means the humidity is very high. The moment humidity is very high, it makes you comfortable. So this is completely done by an algorithm of decision tree. How to do the decision tree? Not very big. There are algorithms. You will be able to directly use it to practice this kind of AI. Okay. I'm not going in detail about how to do that. Then the lecture will be boring. That is not a purpose of this lecture too. New base is another one. For example, you are having two groups of data. Now we wanted to know how much these two groups are different from each other. You use this naive Bayes, and it is basically using the probability. For example, that how many of them, for example, some poor a set of people in which you say about 30% of less than that poverty line, and you try to match between one group of family village. In one village, 30% are less than that of that poverty line. In another village, you are having a population science in the population data, in which about 20% of them are less than this. You're getting the data. But when you individually get the data, you plot all their incomes together and you see, are these two things are different? Are they same? This decision can be taken by naive Bayes type of supervised learning. Again, you see, you know what data you're giving and you understand the data. You take your help to do that. If you want more about it, I have given a web link. Just please go and understand more about it inside. Next is the random forest regression. Random forest regression is a model. It's very powerful and accurate. It performs great on many problems, including features where non-linear relationship. As you remember that I told you, like linear regressions, we use linear relationships, where absolutely there is no linear relationship here. So here, there are different trees are being made, which is having different links. Basically, they are bifurcating it into different situations are being made, and all the situations are you call individually trees, all linked to the same sample input, and you look forward for an output decision based upon an individual tree which has been made. So this can predict nonlinear relationships, and overall together, right, it can predict all predictions you take it together. And random forest prediction, the biggest disadvantage is that, however, include there is no interpretability. Overfitting may happen each other. It must choose the number of trees to include in this model. There are some pitfalls in each and every model about the random forest regression for decision making and for random forest model. So every system is having its own pitfalls. So when to use which system, when you start working on it, then you understand more about the individual decision. For example, this k next neighbor, it's another one prediction. It does between Euclidean distance between two data points. For example, you have got a category A and category B. You can have a category A, category B means you can even take, for example, that the people, the different weights of people in one particular class. Like for example, you take first year graduate students about their weight, and final year graduate students their weight. Now, you wanted to, you can even get into much more better understanding. So you got another one inside, that is a third year, a student weight, whether he is fitting into this category or this category. See, for example, that sometimes it's a very interesting thing that always students complain that when they enter into the campus, when they go to the mess, they love the food which is served in the mess. But most of the wardens face this problem. In the next year when they come, or third year they come, they say, oh, the food is boring. The food is no more tasty. This is a very common problem. But one of my friend, he was a warden for some time. He said he faced with a mess contractor. The contractor came and said, sir, please do me a favor. You just take the weight of student when he enters into the college of first year. When they come to hostel, take his weight, and take the weight of second year. If they don't like food, they won't have eaten food. If they have not taken food, they should have, his weight should have dropped. See, if the weight is dropped, then you charge me. Now the professor who is in charge of his has no answer for this question. And this is a very funny situation, but all of you just try to understand this. And then you see the guy who is entering into the campus only gains weight. He doesn't lose weight. So therefore, you try to put this, for example, the mess contractor is trying to understand about all of a sudden a new person is coming inside. So he makes food, but what happened, the contractor is different. Now let us assume that a contractor is having two buildings. One building is having first year students and the second building is having fourth year students. Now, what is happening is he makes food according to the requirement. So obviously that according to his prediction, the final year students eat more food than first year student, or first year students eat more food because they gain weight. So anyway, he has to approximate food. So he tries to keep two buildings. A new member comes in at the third year. Now he has to put him either in the building A or in the building B, where to put. So such a type of decision when it comes, this kind of k nearest neighbor comes into picture. Just for understanding, I'm telling you this. So a group of data is falling this side, a group of data is falling on that side. So what it does is that the nearest data points, it takes whatever the nearest data points, it tries to calculate low Euclidean distance between this by x2 minus x2 x1, x2 y2 minus y2 x1 x2. This is the root of this Euclidean distance between the root of x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square. by this formula, it is getting calculated. Then now you try to plot it. You know this data point belongs to which group. So maximum of this data point is falling inside the category A. So now the contractor decides he better go to the building A rather than building B. So that is a way that he optimizes food consumption without wastage. So now this I'm selling you this scenario for to understanding if your mess contractor does that kind of thing. But you see, ultimately he is going to reduce the amount of food which is going to be wasted in this whole scenario. Next, when it comes to the functions, about some of them is regression functions. It could be a simple linear regression, a multiple linear regression, decision tree regression, support vector regression, a random forest regression. Altogether, a regression is something like you are trying to create a straight line. You are trying to create a data in such a way that it fits into a linear hypothesis, where you will be able to just put the value of y and you will be able to understand where it stands. Or put a value of x and you understand that where is the value of y. So it be a single y is equal to x or y is equal to mx, or it is more than one x. Could be x1, x2, x3, x4. When it is one single x, it fits into simple regression, which I think all of you must be remembering that. For example, that between one is between the dependent variable and a single independent variable. Only one dependent, one independent. MLR is something between the dependent variable, multiple independent variables. So independent variables are going to govern that what the value of dependent variable will be. So multilinear regression is something that it is trying to occupy. As I already explained you about QSVR, about a value of one molecule, you can have many of its physical, chemical, and quantum properties can be put together. So every property will be a new independent variable. X1, X2, X3, X4, all independent variables. But altogether, you predicted a line already by using a training. In all these things, as I told you, machine learns from you. You have to train the machine by using a known. So how you will train? By known one you train. Sometime, for example, you try to explain how, suppose if I tell you a grapefruit, somebody is saying grapefruit. So the moment the word grape comes into picture, you immediately, everybody, all of you, whomever is listening to this lecture, will remember a grapefruit. A grape, not grapefruit. But grapefruit is different than fruit as compared to grape. I think many of you may not be knowing about this. If you want to know, just go and search it out in the Google. Give grapefruit, it comes out to be something different. It's just like any another citrus fruit like oranges. It is another variety of it. So this is what now you try to understand. The moment I try to explain a grapefruit, what I did is that you don't know what is grapefruit. Therefore, I used it looks like orange. So it looks like orange means immediately your imagination goes in that way. Of course, your imagination get into what you earlier thought a particular shape, and orange is having a particular shape. So this is a relatively you have to train. But by the way, just with this small example, I trained your brain. Now in this case, you have to train everything accordingly, so that it can be transmitted very well. It can be calculated accordingly. So, well, how do you handle all these things, right? So if you try to execute a machine learning algorithm, how simple is this? It's very simple. All you need to understand is that in your computer, if you have a personal PC or a computer, try to enable or try to import Anaconda Navigator. Anaconda Navigator is having inbuilt libraries. It's just like a navigator, same like that of your Mozilla Firefox or Internet Explorer or something like this. But what is something different in this Explorer? This navigator, Anaconda Navigator, is having Conda inside, and it has several modules like Jupyter Lab. The Jupyter Lab uses typically Python, a Python language. You need not to be an expert of Python language. And the Python language, it uses many packages like NumPy, Matplotlib, or pandas, these libraries are already inbuilt in that. You can enable it very easily. So what it does, so here you see what I just show you, the right hand side of you, you can see some of these values which has been fed by me, right? So that what happened is that we are trying to use some of the free data which is available. There are a lot of free data sets available in the internet platform, and you can use that comfortably to train yourself. This is done in my computer. Therefore, I know that I used imported NumPy, I imported pandas, I imported MATLAB. This is the thing when you just type it. It's like a very small package. I mean, it's a small algorithm. If you just write it and put input variables or output variables, you can yourself do this experiment. You don't need a big laboratory. You can. You don't have to learn Python also. But well, if you have an interest to learn Python, that will be great. You will become an expert in the Python language. You will be able to program much more better. You will be able to see this MATLAB. I mean, the Matplotlib is it can do so much of. I think there is a graphics software in this, and Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook. All these things are free. There is nothing going to cost you anything. And Spider, using this, slowly you do worked out examples by using online videos. You'll be able to train yourself on this part. It's not something very cumbersome for people like you, those who are involved and those who are having bent towards a little research. The Panda is a software library containing Python programming language for data manipulation and analysis. Matplotlib is plotting library for Python used to create visualizations. NumPy is a package containing library to Python, supporting the creation and manipulation of arrays, matrices, along with mathematical functions to operate these arrays. So I told you, you have to convert everything into some array, right? That array conversion is first done. You can do image analysis comfortably using this kind of platform. You can have an image set of thousands of images, millions of images available. Only thing is you need to have enough space to hold the library, all the images. From that image, you are searching for a monkey, you'll be able to search it. Or searching for a friend, you will be able to search it. Fun, but you should be able to engage yourself to understanding this much more about it. Now, finally, in machine language, I explained it. Artificial network is the thing which I told you. Artificial neural network is again ANN. Then came the convolutional neural networks. Then comes autoencoders. This is an algorithm how it goes on. And the recurrent neural networks RNN. These are all several evaluation took place. But my purpose of my lecture today is that make you understand what is this artificial neural network. Artificial neural network is one of the buzzwords today. Anybody is talking about it, and this is the in thing about everything completely. In 1943, McCullough and Pitts, a neurophysiologist and a mathematician, wrote this first known article, how artificial neuron might work, and modeled simple artificial neural network using electrical circuits. They showed that theoretically their model could compute any logical function. So what happened? This is much more interesting. How they inspired a neurophysiologist who inspired human brain function, and with the help of a mathematician converted this into a small network in 1943. And you will not believe, I even today, I really search for the original. There's some publications which came in New Scientist, which discussed about how brain neuronal functions are behaving like a forward bias, a reverse bias, what we classically talk in electronics, or using the gate function and our gate functions and logic functions, how they are integrated. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that for a long time. But that explained, that one publication explained that how this conversion took place. But when you go back and analyze that, this is amazing to understand. 1949, he pushed for the concept further, proposing a learning and law for synapses of neurons. Synapses of neurons is very interesting. Synapses are the neuronal connections, or I hope you are able to listen to this. In between I'll explain you, but just watch this video, right? the neurotransmission takes place in the neurons. So now in the axons, you're having synapses, where the synapses, the vesicles containing the quanta of neurotransmitters are slowly being fused and delivers the synapses. It goes and binds to the postsynaptic cleft, and it bangs and induces the current inside. So that I think if you go back to the roots of pharmacology and physiology, you understand that excitatory postsynaptic potential and inhibitory postsynaptic potential and excitatory. So based upon the potential which is coming through the axons, the dendrite, the axodendritic connection or dendrodendritic connections are getting working like inward rectifiers, or it is behaving like logic gates, or forward bias and reverse bias. All type of electric connections can take place. But what ultimately is happening? So this, as I told you already, integrated circuits are used for memory in your calculator. A simple memory storage is a similar process is happening in your brain too. So we yet to decode more about it, but using those logical functions, they could do artificial neural network. Let me just understand that. How do you train these kind of neurons? This is one of the beautiful to show you few things. Like for example, you take a human, baby human. I always fascinated to see this experiment, which is conducted by New York University in Karan Adop's lab. They were trying to understand a toddler, a 16 months old toddler, how this baby is trying to recognize the dangers, how the baby is trying to understand about the process. So for example, when you try to understand how the neurons are learning, you need to go back to your childhood or babyhood to understand what happens to the baby. Let me just show you this video. Say this experiment, what you see here is the researchers has replaced the wooden handle by a soft, the handrails. Now they're using a soft rubber handrail. Thank you. When the baby is trying to walk on a narrow space, so that the baby is testing it. She knows something is wrong, so she flings it once and not able to assist and not able to travel. They're trying to even put the baby is not ready to go. So the algorithms in the brain and developmental brain is taking place. Slowly, the baby starts learning. See, so the baby is not ready to go. It bites, it hangs, it does all the things, but she does everything, but she doesn't want to move. She knows that it is not good to go because it is untrustable. So a learning of a baby human is developing right from the beginning. The neural circuits are forming that way. So the complicated tasks are being taken by a human brain by a process which can beautifully be explained. Now the baby doesn't want to trust the way to go because that is untrustable linkage. So now when you see what happened to the baby in the brain development, the neuron cells getting formed and they're sending signals to communicate each other. So the connections which are forming are when you're trying to reinforce it again and again, and you're trying to learn, when the reinforcement is more, the synapses is getting formed very hard. Where the reinforcement has not been done and it is not very good. In that case, that see the connections fade away and they call neuronal pruning. So these pathways are getting formed and these pathways are responsible for making the complete connection inside the brain. So but this process is the one which is optimizing the brain towards the full function. Through this process, the neurons possess a strong linkage between visual, emotion, and motor skills, behavior, as well as language memory. Everything is getting optimized. If this optimization is very important for the baby's overall growth. If the circuits are not formed properly, then one will not expect this to function in. Then they give the input, the output will not be according to what is required as a normal human being. So what is being learned in the algorithm is being practiced when the baby grows up for everything later. So how to train, when you try to make neuronal networks, how to train this was the question. This picture explains you how this goes on. As I told you, that you can have a excitatory postsynaptic potential or could have an inhibitory potential. In the inhibitory potential or postsynaptic potential, they decide whether the neuron is going to fire or not. You have dendrodendritic connections, axodendritic connections. These connections is going to take things to different angles. So the input and output inside the neuron is completely decided by the inputs which are by the inbuilt condition of that particular neuron about the type of neurotransmitters or type of neurotransmitter receptors are present over there. If some receptors are not there at all, in that case, that the inhibitory neurotransmitters are not there, in that case, it is not going to function at all. So that will be firing much more faster. So this is the fundamental basics of a neuronal propagation of impulses. And also, the one which is not getting connected or not being used, if we use more and more the neural connections, that it creates a vicious cycle, the algorithm is set in the brain. So similar thing has been set inside the brain, but this is from another laboratory of Lowry, neuroimaging, how really that neuroimage looks alike. This is very interesting. They track the paths. A live brain imaging shows how the impulses are going on between one neuron and another neuron. This microscopic image just shows that how the image is getting transferred from one place to another place, and it's forming the algorithm. And this formed algorithm is the one which is going to be used later. But I really was fascinated. It's a true picture, a three-dimensional picture they have created, how the brain works completely. See the neural matrix in the brain? This is very complicated, right? It has layer by layer of neurons. Together, it does the process of learning and memory. Learning, memory, and some sort of automatization is also taking place. So this is about. Then let us come to artificial neural network. How we are trying to mimic such a type of layer. First is the input layer. A baby is trying to do exercise, so it is trying to create input layer. There are several neurons are slowly neural neurons are firing. There are some hidden layers, and which really we don't know. We try to explain this hidden layer in our own way, but really what is happening in the human brain we still yet to understand. But to some extent, we try to optimize this. Then you get an output layer. Output layer is again, it is trying to coordinate, it just memorizes it. Whenever you get an input layer signal, the output is, for example, I want to walk. So this is the impulse comes inside your brain. Immediately you will stand up. You will be having a coordinated movements between your leg muscles, your anti-gravity muscles, and you will be having one is contracting, another is relaxing, another is contracting, another is relaxing, and it coordinates you to walk. Similarly, this hidden layers learn it. So you never that I wanted to pull this muscle to step forward. I wanted to pull this muscle to put left leg, right leg. You don't have to remember because there is an algorithm already set in your brain. The neurons are connected to each other. Incoming intervals are multiplied by a weight. So what we do is in artificial network, the input is multiplied by a weight. I mean weighted calculations. The signal output signal that is given as a sum of the products plus bias transformed by an activation function. So little bit it is getting complicated for you now. So what we try to do is here. Let me just go to the next slide to explain you a little more. I mean, when a small video to explain you how it works. So what I also told you that the input layer is around elliptical circle, a square. See, when the input layer is having activated, it is getting converted into a linear vector, and it is been fed into the first layer. So there's magic layers in between this. They are having a particular algorithm. So what is getting output is, what is this? Is a square triangle? You get a triangle eating up. It is it's again another triangle. Again it is coming. If it is a square, you get the square bulb comes up. So the whole bunch of one by one layer, every layer having a particular function to exclude or include functions. Let us try to understand by this way. This is more very interesting one. I just show you the next picture. This is number 9. Human brain recognizes as number 9. But you must understand this. This picture is taken by a low resolution camera or by your mobile phone. When your mobile phone, you take a picture of number 9 and you take it to your computer, try to enlarge it as much as possible. When you try to enlarge it as much as possible, you will see these kind of pixels, pixelated figure. Now, what you are seeing here is the center portion you are having white, and towards periphery, it is becoming gray. And this is how images are getting formed in the CCD, that is a charge coupled device. The camera is having a small chip, and the chip is having this pixels. For example, you are buying a camera, you are buying a mobile phone with 3 megapixel. 3 megapixel is that much amount of pixels are there in the CCD. Their image goes and falls. So now when you see this number 9, how it is predicted in the algorithm. Now you try to convert into 28 by 28 pixelated. Now you set all of them. So you get 784 pixel, 28 rays and 20 X and Y. Now what I have done is that here you are trying to give a value. If it is completely white, it is value 1. If it is gray, it is 0.58. Or if it is less than gray, the activation happens only if it reaches 0.58. Otherwise, it goes towards black. That phase is not being activated, and it assumes that there is no current coming from this. So activated layers are all starting from 0.58. What we converted, the whole matrix being converted into a single linear vector. So linear vector, now it's coming into the first row is having a linear vector. Then you are having the hidden layers. Now number 9, which is coming inside. Now, so it has to go and it has to show. So now when you activate this number 9, it has to be more than that value. So you see that 9 is become complete white. That you have already given output value. If it is coming out to be more than 0.9, it is number 9. So this is output matrix. So when you just try to put it, it is weighted. So it is being sliced by the second layer into multiple parts and goes to the third layer. Third layer, every dot recognizes every pixel details, where it combines. There are 2 possibilities are coming here. From there, the white is coming out to be 9 because it is having a round under a longitudinal one. So you see that in the third layer, you can see very carefully on the third layer. I just stop and show. In the third layer, yes, in the third layer, what you see here is round is coming here. At the same time, you are having a linear line is coming at the third dot. As a result, if this 0 and this 1, both of them are getting lighted up here, it is representing towards the value 9 because both of them are joining together. So both of them are joined together, it comes to be a value of 0.9, and that 0.9 it lights up. In between that, what we do is that we try to convert by weighted numbers. The initial numbers, what I told you in grayscale, is being converted to the weighted numbers on the secondary, and secondary is again converted into your sigmoid functions by if you're having higher number, it will be flattened, and lower number is amplified. This is what happens in the second layer. And in the third layer, it has been bifurcated into different sections. Once such a layer, such a information comes there, based upon this value, is the value is more than 0.9, it lights up. This is more than 0.9, this lights up. As both of them lights up, and 9 lights up because it's connected here. So all activation can happen only if the values are matching. This array is used in artificial neural networks. If you just try to, some of you may not be able to understand what I talk about it. There are some simple explanations, simple calculations. If you try to do it, you will be able to understand how this works. Or if you don't want to know how it is working, no problem. You will be able to use this as such by using, as I told you that in the Anaconda browser, using Jupyter Notebook, you will be able to use it directly. You don't have to bother what type of thing is there inside, but you will be able to use it. In medicine, I mean, this artificial intelligence, we use it in PapNet. PapNet is one of the most important various cytology. So you see the image of the cells has been seen by a cytologist for somebody is having cervical cancer or not, is been sent a high digital resolution, and it is getting converted and says that the output says that whether it is normal or abnormal. It's very difficult for any cytologist to understand that whether somebody is having, because not one cell. See, basically, when you are trying to diagnose a patient in a very early stage of cancer, you have 1 million cells, out of which 2 cells are abnormal. And it has to be sensed, it has to be figured out. Therefore, high resolution image is converted into a pixelated form, and the pixelated form sent it to the neural network, and the network says whether it is normal or abnormal, and this is what it is. In deep learning, if we say machine learning is directly correlating it. In deep learning, what happens? You have multiple networks inside. You have several layers. When you increase more layers, you get more amount of time, which is more amount of power in the computer to calculate this data. Finally, the output comes out as normal or abnormal. The breast, gastric, thyroid, oral epithelial cells, urothelial cells, pleural, peritoneal effusion cytology, many of the neural networks have been developed in this case, and they are all now coming into picture. Deep learning is more layers are added. It gets into deep layering, means intelligent layers. So many filters, you are putting so much of filters, so that you are trying to minimize the error which is coming out when it comes to final output. In radiology, almost invariably we get some requisition even at AIMS. We get a lot of requisition. A lot of people are working with this image analyst to digitize the data which is coming from X-ray film or MRI data. MRI, you definitely get some data in a digital form. You try to convert that data, and our plain X-rays get converted into this form, digital form, and linearized to get the function done. Let me just tell you in next 10 minutes that how we use multilinear regression to understand about a transporter function across blood-ocular barriers. So this work we did. What is the biggest problem of ours is that the drug what you are taking for any of the ophthalmic problem, it doesn't cross the blood-ocular barrier. So you have to understand there is a blood-ocular barrier. It won't allow the drugs to go inside. So the question is that which type of drugs can go more inside? We know from a pharmacokinetic studies, we know that some of the drugs are capable of going inside, some of them are not. Therefore, if somebody gets an infection in the eye, you can't just treat an antibiotic by giving orally or by injected as an injectable. You can't, or intravenous routes. It's not possible. Therefore, how can you give? So that is how we were really not able to understand that what is responsible. possible for it. So our research started long back. It was in 2005. We had an idea of working with QSPR. So we thought that let us understand QSPR. Let's try to do multilinear variation analysis to do that. So what we did is that we have to develop data. So as I told you, it is a supervised learning exercise. So in which we try to develop the database based upon quantum calculations, descriptors, molecular descriptors made by a quantum or by a physical one, or a chemical one. All this quantum descriptor data has been created. In vivo data, we developed in vivo data. In vivo data, again, we have used the cassette dosing technique, because see, you cannot take out a humor of a rabbit or a rat frequently because it is very small in size. You can't take it out, or you cannot tap the vitreous very easily, otherwise the animal will die or get infections. So because the eye is a very immunoprivileged organ, and it is preserved, it is protected from all sides by the barriers. They're all very smart barriers. Blood ocular barrier is further divided into anterior barrier, posterior barrier. Anterior barrier, you have got you're having a ciliary process, as well as cornea are the barriers. In posteriorly, blood retinal barrier coming to fracture. Blood retinal barrier, again inner blood retinal barrier, outer blood retinal barrier. So it's not easy for the drugs to go inside. Eye is protected from all xenobiotics. Therefore, we developed an animal model. What is cassette dosing? Instead of giving one drug to one animal, we give a bunch of drugs. Sometimes we are given 9 drugs to one animal, and when we were sacrificing the animal, or we taking out the humor of the animal, or vitreous humor of the animal, we try to analyze that by using LCMSMS. Or today, LCMSMS allowed us to go for that kind of quantifications. So we did this in the rabbits. We took the humor, we did it, and I'm to cut short the story. The equation, the multilaminar equation, what we developed is as clearly able to understand, clearly able to predict which type of drugs can go inside. Or we can understand that which type of molecules. We were trying to work with fluoroquinolones. So we wanted to, you wanted to use a drug through topically. If you use an eye drop, if it is capable of growing good inside, then you'll be able to save people getting infection when they undergo cataract surgery, when they undergo retinal surgery on other places, or trachoma. Everywhere, you're looking for drug penetration across cornea. It can go more inside, into ocular structures. So for various disease conditions. So here, this is what we have come up with, and it was our publication came in 2011. And one of my student, Dr. Charu Sharma, worked with this hypothesis. Here, this concept picture shows you how we achieved this. So look, when you put an eye drop, the biointelligence, we try to use quantum descriptors. So it equilibrates with the tear film. And the molecule is getting ionized into plus and minus. See that this is what something is very unique. You don't bother about the log P value of a compound always determined by the ionization. If ionization is very high, so you won't get much of log P value. And if ionization goes low, you get more log P value. The solubility goes low. So you have diversity in molecules. So they get ionized at the pH of 7.4. That is a tear film pH. So we have hydrophobic interaction parameter, that is log P. And we wanted that another parameter to come in, that is gap. Gap is the quantum descriptor value, which talks for molecular reactivity, stability of the molecule, electron donating capacity, and energy bonds. The gap is the value is between the HOMO-LUMO energy levels of a molecule. PSA is polar surface area, hydrogen bonding affinity, and water solubility is determined by this. With this parameter, we could predict that equation, which can easily say that if you put the descriptor values for it, you'll be able to understand whether this will be able to go inside the eye or not. You don't have to kill an animal to know the data. So we developed that one for this, and it was highly predictable as compared to other algorithms which have been created for brain. So we were the first one to come out for topical algorithm for this, even as compared to anyone. We were very successful. Now, with the next one we gone ahead with, suppose, okay, fine. If you give a drug orally, can this drug reach eye? Which type of drugs capable of reaching eye? This is the second question we had. Similar type of approach we made. And we have used this QSPR approach in which a set of drugs we made it. Here, we have a training set and we have a test set. So the now amount of data which has been generated is quite high. After giving animal the data, all the drugs in combined, about 1/20th of the therapeutic dose we have given, because we don't want this to undergo any one of the transporter function or try to interact each other or drug interaction. We never wanted anything to take place. So we gave it intravenously, this one, the group of drugs. Basically, we had a congeneric and non-congeneric. Here, there, in the previous study, we used very less numbers. Here, the number is pretty high. See, congeneric is something like having a similar structural character. Non-congeneric is diverse chemical structures. So now the quantity, the earlier prediction of ours is much more congeneric. We didn't work on non-congeneric, but in this study, we used non-congeneric also, and the data generated was also quite high. So when we took congeneric, about 40 of them, and non-congeneric 50 of them, the drugs are all approved drugs, which are already approved. We know about their bioavailability, we know about their protein binding, we know every parameter about it. So always the drug penetration in the eye is depending on concentration. So we tried to up a trial data and test data very nicely. From there, we tried to predict it. Here we took help of SCF Bio, that is supercomputer facility of IIT Delhi, and we used the Catalyst software, ACD software, Cache, all things we used it to develop the molecular descriptors, and we did the modeling. We used the multilinear regression and other advanced regression. We try to use it to fix this in silico models for BRB, that blood retinal barrier. So, well, final algorithm we have created. I think, to short the story, this is what our high precision bioanalytical laboratory, we have the capability of analyzing all this group of compounds what we use, statins, fluoroquinolones, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, antifungals, everything together. But we use an animal model as a rabbit as an animal model. Here used and ascent dosing. So you can see in one animal we could do many compounds going ahead, but all the things that the method developed as per US FDA guidelines, validated. We ensure that we don't have any flaw in the calculation methods. And you see, this is just a glimpse shot of all the data which has been created and how much about the log percentage penetration of vitreous penetration of all the compounds. So although all of them are equimolar quantities, we administered intravenously, and when we optimized it based upon their plasma data, we normalized for plasma levels, we found they are differing quite heavily in their intraocular penetration. So when we brought into the algorithm, and we start applying this, or in Discovery Studio and BioVia Studio, we are used to for using this. That time, we were not very comfortable with other algorithms. So when we were trying to use these descriptors, validating the predicting test set, see the test set, what is so this is a machine learning algorithm now. It is a predicting data set is linear. The y is equal to fx is the function of x. The function could be different. Y is equal to fx. It's showing a straight line algorithm. And when we try to fix it here, we are getting, when we try to apply it on test data set, we started predicting well. We are predicting more than, almost we reached the level of 0.6. Anything which goes beyond 0.5 is considered as good when you come to prediction is concerned. When we have biologically, you are having a lot of complication. So even that much is enough for us to understand that whether the drug goes inside or not. So what we understood finally is that this is directly proportional to the plasma level. Vitreous concentration is directly proportional to the plasma levels and the gap which is derived, which is also inversely proportional to protein binding. See that if the protein binding is high, free drug is low. The free drug is low, then it cannot penetrate inside. Therefore, the protein binding is very important. PK derived, of course, as I told you already, and log P. These two or other two assumptions inversely correlated to get a R square value of 0.59. We were very happy with this with this levels. When we predicted an experimental log VP, we could see beautifully this is fitting into the straight line of 0.78. This is which with the 48 eyes, we were very, very, very comfortable with this one. Finally, if we just try to understand this, when you give IV, the drug goes inside the human body. Based upon the log protein binding and log P value, it partitions into the eye. By using quantum descriptors of gap, we could see how much it is penetrating inside the eye. So again, this slowly increases the binding inside, and the protein binding and gap is again forming similar to that of as I told you. So vitreous levels are directly predicting predicted by plasma levels. When the plasma levels are continuously increasing, then the vitreous levels are slowly raising up. So all these things are predicted, the concept we derived based upon it. So based upon these studies, we could figure it out. Yes, the assumption what we made for blood ocular barrier for topical penetration somehow is of great use to understand about vitreal penetration also. So something like, now can this be applied to chemical structures? So the chemical structures, all of us are very much aware that chemical structures are three-dimensional structure or 2D if you write it, can be converted into a linear string because computer works with the linear strings. So now this is the simplified molecular input inline entry system. SMILES came into picture. In 2007, Blue Obelisk open source chemistry community developed this simplified chemistry molecular input line into entry system so that this can be converted into a single line and can be subjected for AI. So if you are trying to buy a house, you have to define the house, how big it's supposed to be, and how many rooms it's supposed to have, how much of this one is supposed to doors you need, how much is the area for lawn, how much, all the things. Whenever you try to build everything together, if you search for only a house, you see million houses. The moment you define more into characters, you see very less is coming to be thousands or hundreds, even tens. So that is how the chemical structure all need to be. So using this simplified SMILES, you can convert your notation, you can convert the 2D structure to a line structure, right? So this is where we have that has reached this. If somebody is interested, let's go through this rdkit.org. It gives you a beautiful explanation. How do you convert your 2D structure into a similar small fingerprint sizes of 1K to 4K bytes of vector, a bit vector one, and which can be used for assessing, which can be subjected for further similarity-based AI applications. The fingerprint similarity is a molecular similarity. Something like people were understanding about how molecular fingerprints are used in drug discovery. So what we call molecular fingerprint, as I already told you, this is a Morgan fingerprint or extended connectivity fingerprinting, ECFP, is an algorithm through which assign every atom of an identifier, update every atom identifier based upon its neighbors, remove duplicates, and fold a list of identifiers into a vector, what you call as a Morgan vector, Morgan fingerprint. I explained in the previous slide itself. So here you see the generation of new identifiers. This is the the deuteramide structure. How the deuteramide structure is getting, this is the structure of deuteramide in the lower bottom of the left side. He's been assigned in different numbers based upon this criteria, Morgan fingerprint criteria or ECFP. It's getting converted here, and it is getting fragments are being identified. Based upon fragments, you have based upon fragments, you identified that. I show you a small publication which came up in PNAS recently in 2019. I just given the reference here. Those who are interested, please go through this publication. It's very interesting and very much easy to understand. So they use different algorithms. What they have done is that they wanted to develop a molecule which is having affinity towards GPCRs, especially our muscarinic receptors. So they took carbachol as a agonist, and they tried to plot it, and it took for the contraction the response on probably a guinea pig ileum or could be a biological response. And they plotted it. You see a left-hand side top corner, you see this graph. When you keep on increasing concentration, you get a shape curve, the typical pharmacology curve you identify, and try to see the EC50 of it, which is coming out to be this is a compound, this is a carbachol. So EC50 is derived based upon it. But when they try to use this ligand predicting biological activity, they took about 5.9 million molecules, which have been taken from chemoinformatics softwares. And these many molecules are being converted into a Morgan fingerprint. And Morgan fingerprint has been subjected for random matrix discriminant, what you call RMD, is the algorithm they have used. This algorithm, random matrix discriminant algorithm, which converts this one into when you are trying to find out similarity-based analysis. When the similarity based analysis, when it comes, they took our U, that is U value, that is what you call Morgan fragment, you always call mu. Mu radius of 3 was used. So mu, wherever you try to see a small fragment, you take it, and that fragment you try to find out the radius of 3 micron or 3 Armstrongs, and you try to figure out the neighboring groups. So when you see, this is a new type of approach predicting a ligand biological activity. See, when they took different receptors, that is adrenergic receptor, histamine receptor, and calcium channel block, calcium receptors, and hERG channel. hERG channel is we always try to use as a counter channel. We don't want molecules to have action on hERG channel. Therefore, the whole sequence, we don't want it to, the new drug which is being developed shouldn't have an affinity toward hERG. That hERG, as you know, that is involved in TARDIS, the point is that is arrhythmia. So like you must be remembering about terfenadine, which has been taken out because it causes arrhythmia. That is because of this, their affinity towards hERG channel. So the drug we don't want them to have. They use different algorithms, RMD, random matrix, naive Bayes, tiny metal, SVM, and graphic convolutions. Almost they used several of them to see how good it is. They found RMD was fixing very well. That is random matrix discriminant. And using this, they developed these molecules. These molecules, the A, B, C, D, when you see that the curve is shifting towards the right side, showing that they are antagonizing the actions of carbachol on the isolated preparations, having a different values here. They try to develop this. So how this is enabled by them? During with this kind of algorithm, they develop this algorithm. This algorithm is not very difficult for somebody to understand also. I would strongly suggest people to go through that paper, which I mentioned recently, just in the previous slide, Pina's paper. You'll be able to understand. So let me just explain you this in these two pictures, two structures here, how it is important. The molecular structure, you see, this piperidine is this perspective matched molecular pair analysis corroborates the significant negative correlation between piperazine and aromatic nitrogen motif. That is the model predict. See that the EC50 of this molecule is having, they have 2 nitrogens here. Here there is only 1 nitrogen. Here this 1 nitrogen, the nitrogen is in proximity, and they took this group as a similarity analysis into 5.9 million compounds, and they got this structure in which the EC50 is 0.159 micromolar, whereas the presence of nitrogen in the same structure, which shows EC50 is more than 10 micromolar. That shows within single run, they are able to understand about how much it is. So now you see this next slide, the second structure, you have another accessory here, another side group here, that in this group, methoxy function, in this case, you see again the same nitrogen. When the presence of nitrogen is increasing the micromolar, so you wanted the EC50 is on smaller side, lesser side. If it reduces lesser, then you see a good, the potency increases, or it will be it's good as a candidate for development, as a drug development. If it is having higher micromolar, EC50 is very high, in that case, you won't even classify that as having any activity, it becomes non-specific. So in this matching function, they try to do it, the disconnected spots are not matching. The one which is having a very high, a thick band, which shows a very high matching, based upon the similarity of the structure, these structures are predicted by using the similarity matching function. Just if you read the paper, you understand more about this clearly. So to the heights of all, it was in 2018, a flu vaccine, which has been discovered by using this kind of artificial intelligence. It was a first drug designed by using artificial intelligence, and the newspaper appeared. This appeared in the newspapers that the scientists use artificial intelligence to create turbocharged flu vaccine. It is also called as turbo flu. Now it has come to clinical trials, and now it is in use for flu. How they did it? They did the compounds capable of activating human immune system. They took the group of these compounds, and the compounds known to have no effect on immune system has taken another group, and they used an algorithm called SAM, search algorithm for ligands. And this algorithm, see, these algorithms which are developed by these companies are not often come as an open software, because the companies try to keep it as much as secret possible. But well, in some publications you are able to understand this well. The computer program generated trillions of chemical compounds through SAM for promising drug candidates. And through the drug candidates, some of the top candidates were synthesized, one of which proved incredibly effective in animals, that has moved to clinical trial. Now it has just come for public use also. This is Professor Nikolai team which worked in Australia to bring that vaccine. This is the first time you see AA program is bringing vaccine, and that too very quickly. You don't have to wait for 10 years to develop this. I mean, it cut shorts your amount of preclinical studies which are required. See, now you have too much of knowledge available in the public database about the human manual or human gene manual or proteomes database. So you should be able to understand, what is available and to use them. We need not to go back and work on the roots. Still, it is very painful at times to see people even try to work upon the extracts of plants and not even trying to do a little bit of chemistry about it. Sorry, to do a little bit about molecular levels, try to understand about it. So we have to encourage students. We have to get along with the developments. Otherwise, you will be left alone, and the science will move ahead to a far distance. So this is something which is a very interesting one. This is what is the modern fingerprint structure is being converted to a linear form. For example, if it is hydrogen donor, hydrogen acceptor, aromatic, halogen, or any of these are the acidic. All these, any of the chemical groups. Now, if you put a Lipinski here, you'll be able to convert this into Morgan circular fingerprints, and it can be used for this kind of thing. I have taken this from Novartis presentation, and I think you will be able to see in RD kit Novartis presentation. You will be able to get more information about that. Similarly, again, principal component analysis. It's not only this in pharmaceuticals, in nutraceuticals. Again, there's a big influence of AI. See this publication which appeared in PNAS again. See, this is very interesting. See this wine which is called as Italian grape, is a sort of Italian. It's a very particular Italian grape from Barolo region. It is called as this is also called as, sorry, 1 minute. This is one of the most expensive wines coming from this grape, and the AI has been applied here to understand what is something special about that particular wine. See, this is demoninace the origin controllata e grantier, that DOCG signature of wines of Barolo is something that very interesting, which is more than about only 74 companies are allowed to sell this with the signature, and they decoded it. See, the wine grapes which are coming from Nebbiolo has been sorted out here, and multi-component, the principal component analysis shows that Nebbiolo is having more amount of phenol flavonoids as well as proline, magnesium are present over there. That makes this taste much different as compared to others. See, the principal component analysis is bringing it into a different zone, and they can easily classify this belongs to which group. So one of our group, we work upon Ayurvedic drugs, again, Ayurvedic compounds by using NMR and mass spectrometry. We try to bring it to understand about their chemical component. Can it be compared with this? I did not put the slide here, and one of our students is working on this area. So this is how then even A is even used in case of nutraceuticals and in herbal medicine. It can be exploited in herbal medicine. As I already told you, Android app, there is ADA, this ADA map, is called Analysis and Design Algorithms. If you just use this app, you come to know. It shares, first you log you, how do you feel? then it shows that where you have pain. If you locate that you have epigastric pain, and if you locate it in the software, it identifies the area where you have pain. Well, next it asks you question, then it goes for review, whether it is acute gastritis or others. Then it uses another algorithm. It takes a decision. Then it asks you after some time, it tracks and your assignment. It comes and asks you, how is your abdominal pain now? Is it less severe or low severe? Basically, it is trying to develop the algorithm by using this app. This app, as long as you are going more inside the app, you start using, the company will start learning that AI algorithm will start learning more about your normal ailments. After that, it will immediately tell you, like millions of data points coming in, immediately it will tell you that how easily one will be able to use this information. Without the doctor, how can it diagnose your diseases? So AI reached even that side. Finally, AI is a double-edged sword. Humans will remain critical to building, training, and overseeing AI. But I'm not sure that if the moment, if you see AlphaGo, it used, the two intelligent computers were put together to develop their own algorithm. So after a man develops it, I'm not very sure whether that he will be able to withstand it or not. Only time will be able to say. And the drug chemistry is hard to predict, and human experience will count for a long time. That's true. But now the structure similarity analysis is again successfully done, and the recent publication in PNAS of 2006, and the drug which came inside the turbo flu vaccine, this amount of AI gives such an assurance of almost more than 20 companies. Now pharma companies jumped into AI. So it's a time for you to learn more about AI. AI needs to learn its understanding from human experts and the data they have created. And if you say, AI still need chemists to address potential problems before spending money to progress of AI recommendations, well, that's true. Deployment require institutes, companies to build capability that mixes human and the data with technology. Three things. One is you try to develop this on one side. You try to increase the capability of developing a computer algorithm for certain progress. Second thing, sometimes you need to test data. You need to synthesize the compound, or biology need to be addressed where you need to have equal competence. Therefore, I always feel that it's a teamwork. Data science is going to be the most admired and wanted professionals of data scientists are going to be a most admired and wanted professionals of 21st century. I need to secure buy-in and ensure that these new complex tools are used correctly, and we should know how to use this. So with this one I closed on my lecture, and I must thank a couple of my students, Dr. Charu Sharma. She was one of our former DIPSAR student who worked with me about 10 years back, or 15 years back. Charu Sharma graduated PhD from our lab. She worked on the QSPR algorithm for developing this algorithm for corneal transfer of drug. And there is Dr. Ujjwal Kumar Das, and he is recently graduated PhD for his development of QSPR algorithm by using biointelligence on blood ocular barrier transmission of drugs. So I must thank all this work supported by whatever data I shared you, supported as well as DBT Department of Biotechnology funding. And I must thank you all for listening patiently. For those who are interested more in detail about it, I have mentioned everywhere the references from where I have taken. Please use those links to know more about it. And I thank the organizers, Dr. Rajini Mathur, Professor Bakode, and the DIPSAR team. I thank you for all. I thank you all for inviting me to this lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Velpandian, for a very nice presentation. As usual, always out of box thinking and new concepts of artificial intelligence you have combined with the pharmacology, pharmaceutical chemistry, drug design, everything. So it was very good lecture. And here Rajini Mathur ma'am is presenting you a certificate, virtual certificate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Is there any questions? I'm very happy to answer.
Now the session is open for any questions. If delegates are having, if they can
please identify yourself and ask questions.
So we'll quickly go through a couple of questions because our next speaker is also waiting.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
sure,
also
sure.
ready.
Yeah.
Dr. May.
Say AI is a little intriguing subject.
Few
I'm not expecting
question.
people to come out with questions that openly now. I expect if
Dr. Wakure, you can check the chat box. I can see a
Yeah.
chat box,
question
can
from
everyone check the chat box?
Dr. Sudhakar Singh.
Yeah, Dr. Sachin, please.
Oh, there are many.
So there are certain questions in the chat box if you like to ask them.
Please,
You
can
can
anyone ask the questions?
सुधाकर सिंह का एक क्वेश्चन ऐसा रीड आउट कर दीजिए डॉक्टर वाकोड़े सर.
sir, in area of artificial neural network, how it is differentiate between 0 and 8, like both having circle structure in their shape.
Yes. Yes, I'm very happy that you understood that. How we're trying to convert a picture into a linear vector and an algorithm. See, basically that what is 0, 1 values or more rock bottom fundamental values. But what really happens is that you use a particular algorithm to carry out that function. This will not be as simple as that directly we are getting converted to 0, 1. Everywhere a conversion algorithm you use it. So as I told you, RDKit, if you just see RDKit is an open software, you can just play with that. And Morgan fingerprint you can generate it by using RDKit. You know, it just convert it into a form that you can't read it. Again, you need to enable it by using using, suppose you get into a platform where you can use this software. So there only you can use this. You can't open and see where is 0, 1, 0, 1 coming up. So it's all, the fundamental is 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, but it's all happening in an algorithm. You won't see openly. Therefore, there is no direct link.
Okay.
Sir, you can take a last question from Ashish Sharma.
Yeah, Ashish Sharma is asking, artificial intelligence is regarded as a black box as we don't know the reason of decision taken by AI. So how trustworthy is using AI in the healthcare services?
Yes, see, this is something a big question, but it is successfully being used. Now, you know, the cancer, there are some, commercially available cancer script, or you say is the cytogenetic softwares. They are all capable of predicting because being developed very well. It's all depend upon how do you train the software. So for example, first human intelligence is required to train the software. So as I told you, I showed you a small picture that you teach a baby how to walk. Then the baby develop the skills to walk. This is what you're trying to teach. And this is what happens in the brain. And you try to make the algorithm in the brain and it starts using by itself. So when you compare the human as a machine and as a computer, human brain as a computer, you have to train. Unless you train, you cannot expect what is coming out. Once if it is trained, you will get a highly predictable value even as compared to human. That is what it is ultimate. But the training is very important and the parameters used for training is much more important. So the computer doesn't know anything, but it will be using this and you develop it and it will tell you about what training you are given. It will be much more faster. It can beat you, but you need to have a human intelligence right now to make that intelligence possible in the computer. Till then, you need to be hand-holding has to be done for some time. You get totally trusting that.
Okay, I hope Mr. Ashish is satisfied with the answer given by Dr. Velpandian. Thank you very much, sir, for
Thank you,
sparing
sir.
your valuable time. We know that you are always busy, but
Not busy
you
with
always,
DIPSAR. I'm happy.
yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Dr. Sachin, maybe you can also just join in and because you're the moderator, you can also just speak a few words. Dr. Sachin? Okay, sir.
Sachin, sir?
He is not there, I think, Dr. Sachin. Okay, no issues. Sir, thank you so much. And I'm sure that we can share your email with the participants, and anybody
Yes.
wants to get in contact with you further.
If
So
somebody
maybe you
wants to join
can,
the lab, they're welcome.
so you can maybe type it in the chat box, leave your email there for the participants.
Yeah, that
And
is good. If
so they
somebody
can
wants
contact.
to, yes, definitely. Sure.
So they can contact you for any, because I'm sure you have stimulated a lot of people, and because we are running short on time, we won't be able
Please.
to take. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, Dr. Wakode, sir, maybe
Yeah.
you can introduce the next speaker we have with us.
Dr. Amey is there, I think. Dr. Sachin, if you are
Sir,
there.
Yes, sir.
sir, I'm sharing the screen. Is it visible?
Yeah, yes. Sachin sir can introduce.
Uh, good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes,
Am
sir.
I audible?
Now
Yes,
it
you're
is.
audible, but your voice is breaking.
Actually, ma'am, there is a connectivity problem. If Professor Wakode
Okay,
can do
okay.
that,
No
it
problem. I
would
was
be
thinking.
much
No,
better.
no problem. So, in this next lecture, we are welcoming Professor Amey Sanjay Kasture sir, Director Opti for Life Sciences Private Limited.
No, I think we got it wrong. That is Dr. Sanjay. Professor Ame is at the university.
Okay, okay.
He is
Yes.
in Vienna. He's in
Yeah,
Vienna. He's joining us from Vienna.
okay, okay. Professor Amey graduated from University of Pune in 2010. Then he did his Masters of Sciences in Molecular Neuroscience at the University of Bristol, UK, and PhD in the Cell Communication in Health and Disease, Medical University, Vienna, Austria. Professor Amey was postdoctoral research at the Medical University of Vienna, Austria. Dr. Amey has joined as a project officer at the Nanyang Technology University, Singapore, worked as a staff associate at the Columbia University, New York, USA, and was a university assistant at the University of Vienna, Austria. To his credit, he is having member of Austrian Pharmacological Society, Austria and International Transmembrane Transporter Society. Dr. Amey is reviewer for scientific reports, Frontiers, Aging Neuroscience, International Journal of Molecular Science, Metabolites, BMC Complementary and Alternative Medicine and Life Sciences. Dr. Amey has a grant application reviewer for the Motor Neuron Disease Association, UK, Drosophila as a model organism to study neurological disorders, behavioral neuroscience, structure and functional aspects of monoamine transporters, pharmacochaperone are the key areas in which Dr. Amey is working. Dr. Amey has guided 4 graduate students and 2 Erasmus students and has numerous publications to his credit. So, welcome, Dr. Amey. It was very nice experience when Dr. Amey has given offline presentation last year in DIPSAR boardroom to all the distinguished pharmacologists of Delhi and faculty members of DIPSAR. But due to this COVID situation, we have a chance to again listen to Dr. Amey in this online mode. I welcome Dr. Amey.
Good morning, Dr. Ame.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
So is it morning in Vienna as well?
Indeed, indeed.
Okay. So
Okay.
I also extend a welcome to you from Dr. R.K. Goyal. Unfortunately, he's caught up in a meeting and will not be able to attend the webinar, though he wanted very much to be part of this webinar. And I welcome you on his behalf as well. And I'm sorry for the typo there because we confused you with your father. And I think he's also logged in, and it's really a pleasure to see your own son doing so well and listen to his webinar.
He's
And
following the
we
footsteps of
welcome
Kasture sir also.
we welcome you both. And
Yeah,
sorry for the time
welcome
delay,
Kasture
but
sir also.
sorry for the time delay, and the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
So I would like to begin by thanking all the QIP team, and I'm very thankful to Professor Goyal for giving me the opportunity, and I'm also very thankful to the organizers of the QIP program, especially Professor Sharad Wakore, Dr. Rajni Mathur, and all other QIP organizers. And I would be, so can you see my screen, or 1 second?
Not
Am I the, can I share the screen? 1 second.
just a minute. Yeah, now you can try.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we are able
Okay,
to see.
perfect.
Just enlarge it.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon,
This is
everyone, and
perfect.
yeah, it's a pleasure to speak with all of you via this online session. It would have been much nicer to be in offline, yeah, face-to-face conversations, but I think in these difficult times, I think this is a sort of a new norm at the moment. Uh, so I welcome all of you. And so I'll be talking about some of the intricate details of this pharmacochaperoning concept. Yeah. So I'll be talking about some of the basic aspects, what exactly that we do in Vienna, and what in general quality control means for the proteins. Yeah. So I mean, this is the presentation in brief. So these are some of the points that I will be covering. So you'll be hearing about the folding of this a class of proteins. These are the solute carrier 6 family of transporters. So I'll be explaining them in the upcoming slides. We will be discussing about the quality control of these proteins which get folded in the endoplasmic reticulum. I'll be then talking about the folding disorders. So these are the Mendelian diseases. So these are the diseases that one encounters as a single point mutation in these proteins. We will be talking about pharmacochaperoning as a concept, and we'll be then focusing on what are the future prospects. Yeah. So how do this new class of compounds, so what potential do they hold? So we are shifting gears towards a bit, let's say, cellular from the artificial intelligence. So bear with me. So when we say protein, so protein is the holy grail when it comes to biochemistry or medicine. And the protein is actually the target for various drugs. Yeah. And so it's quite critical to know the structure of the protein. And before we know the structure of the protein, it's quite important to know how the folding of the protein starts. Yeah. So, I mean, if you imagine a protein which is 100 amino acids long, so typically proteins are much longer than this. And if it was a random event for the protein to acquire the finished product state that you can see here, and if a protein tries to acquire this folding state in a random fashion, then in order to fold this protein properly, it will take time, which is longer than the time of the universe. Yeah. So since we all exist in the given time and we're all in this live session, we do appreciate that the folding of the proteins, folding of the protein is not exactly a random process, and it's highly guided process. What is also the case is even if it's a normal protein in a normal individual, it's always a likely scenario that you don't see a protein who starts to begin is destined to reach the properly folded state. Yeah. So for example, here are some instances where if we have the human dopamine transporter type 1, so the dopan-R1, so here it's likely to misfold almost half of the times. Yeah, this is also the case for delta opioid receptors, and in the case of, for example, rat luteinizing hormone receptors, only 20% of the proteins, yeah, they make it on the surface. So in the upcoming slides, you'll be also hearing about the dopamine transporter. And what we also notice is not all of the protein which is synthesized makes on the surface, which is its desired destination. So when the protein starts to fold, the job of the protein, if we say the nascent protein starts to fold here on this energy landscape diagram, then the job is at the end of the day, it has to achieve this properly folded state. And we'll be talking about the secretory proteins. And in the next slide, I'll be explaining how does the protein folds. But what important aspect here is when the protein starts to fold, it has to achieve a state of the least free energy. And what it typically means is that, so the protein, as soon as it starts to fold, it tries to acquire a very stable conformation. And while doing so, it goes through this energy landscape diagram. You'll be hearing about it in the upcoming slides. And the job of the protein is at the end of the day to fold properly. Yeah. So we do appreciate that it's quite a complex process. And at the end of the day, when the protein is folded properly, it is able to do its job, and it's also then available for pharmacological manipulations. Yeah. So now talking about the secretory protein. So when the protein folding can take place at multiple sites. So for the secretory proteins, the endoplasmic reticulum is the site of folding. The protein folding can also take place in the cytoplasm. So now talking about the secretory protein. So the folding trajectory or the life cycle looks like this, what you see on the slide. So these are the ribosomes and the XXXIII translocation. So they dock on the endoplasmic reticular membrane, and when the protein starts to fold properly, it basically docks here if there is any hydrophobic moieties in the protein. And so when the protein is getting folded properly, of course, there are the quality control steps. So I mean, here briefly, I have mentioned two. So there's a Carl-Nexin or Carl-Reticulin cycle. And there is also then this heat shock protein relay, yeah, which are basically then being a part of this quality control mechanism. So now the protein, it's in a nascent form, and the job of a protein now is to achieve this fully folded state. Yeah. So now the protein starts to fold, and then it's undergoing this Carl-Nexin or Carl-Reticulin cycle in the endoplasmic reticulum. And if the protein is properly folded, at that instance, the Carl-Nexin will detach from the protein, and it will then be further scrutinized by additional quality control steps. So you'll be hearing about the HSP and how it interacts, because this proteins or this relay is not a part of the endoplasmic reticulum, but they are rather present in the cytosol. But they do interact with these proteins, that what we found. And if you inhibit the interactions, then this quality control step can be, the stringency of the quality control step can be reduced. Yeah. So if after going through all the quality control checks, if the protein is still folded properly and that has been approved, the protein comes at the ER export site where it interacts with the coptomachinery components, and basically it's now ready to follow the secretory path. From the ER, it will be trafficked to the ER Golgi intermediate complex, from where it will go to the Golgi body, and later on sorting from there will result in reaching the protein at the respective site, which is the plasma membrane. So this is all looks good if the protein is folded in the natively folded state. Now what typically could happen is, if the protein is realized that it's not properly folded, then it still stays bound to one of the chaperones, and then it follows the ER associated degradation pathway. Yeah. So in the lysosomes, the protein gets degraded. So this is typically the quality control steps which are there. Are these the only steps? So I would say no. So these are the trafficking associated quality control steps. If the protein is still misfolded, then it could be that it can be trafficked back and it can be sent to the lysosomal degradation. So the quality control steps stay active throughout the life cycle of the protein, because of course the protein is there at the plasma membrane. The job of this protein is to perform its function. So if it's a GPCR, it's going to be doing the downstream signaling. If it's the transporter, it will be reuptaking the neurotransmitters that you'll be hearing in the upcoming slides. And all in all, the protein will get exhausted at some point. and it needs to be replaced. So this process is highly dynamic, and at no point one could say this is the stationary situation where once integrated in the membrane, it stays in the membrane. Yeah, it's a very, very dynamic process. Okay, perfect. So now, as we understood, so the protein folding, it's not exactly the easiest process, and we're talking here about two different scenarios. So first of all, I will go through the in vitro scenario. So these are the proteins which are there in the test tube or in your beakers, and so these proteins are allowed to fold properly. And what you can imagine here is the proteins are in a highly diluted environment, and they have ample space, yeah, in order to fold properly. And the job of this protein is to achieve from this unfolded state where the entropy is pretty high, and they then travel to this state of a natively folded state where the entropy is quite low. So this is the energy landscape diagram. And what would happen is these proteins, they can get trapped in different conformations, because at the end of the day, the objective of these proteins is to achieve a folded state and to reach these lower values of entropy, and they can get stuck at different steps of protein folding. And once they're fully folded, then they achieve this mature form where they will be then having the least amount of free energy. So now this all looks good in a diluted environment. Now when we talk about in vivo scenario, so for example, it's a small room, and in a small room you have thousands and thousands of people which are gathered. So we're talking about millimolar concentration ranges at the endoplasmic reticulum. There's a very crowded environment, and one has to fold properly in a very short span of time. So when I said the protein folding is not exactly a random process, typically all these proteins, they fold in the range of nanoseconds to milliseconds. Yeah. And some of them can also fold in less time spans. So now here in this energy landscape, so the proteins can also get guided by molecular chaperones. So job of these proteins is to assist, and these are kind of a generic molecules which will assist all the proteins, yeah, that they could assist. So if it's a hydrophobic residues which needs to be shielded, these proteins will come and they will help the protein folding. Yeah. And we also have this chemical chaperones such as 4-phenyl butyrate or DMSO. So they act by different mechanisms, and at the end of the day, the job is to help the protein fold properly. Yeah. So what we understood from the previous slide is in this energy landscape diagram that the protein tries to achieve a state where it's properly folded, and in most instances the proteins forms dimers or oligomers, yeah, which is the most stable conformations for them. So before they even get exit from the ER, they are already there in the oligomerized conformation, and this stable array is then transported to the respective sites. Yeah. So now while achieving this highly stable conformation, there are a lot of possibilities as a result of, let's say, point mutation. They can achieve a misfolded state. And these point mutations where the protein is now misfolded could result in broadly two different types of pathologies. One could be the loss of function pathologies. The other one could be the gain of function pathologies. So typically in the loss of function pathologies, what could happen? So these are some of the examples. So the classical one that we know of is the cystic fibrosis. And I'll be talking about the dopamine transporter deficiency syndrome, which is also the topic of work for me in Vienna. And so what typically can happen in the loss of function pathologies is, as a result of this misfolded protein, the protein can achieve a conformation which is a hypomorph, or which is reduced, having the reduced functionality, or there is a complete loss of function as a result of this point mutation. So we'll be talking about these aspects in detail in the upcoming slides. There is another type of mutation, for example, which results in the gain of function pathogenesis. So Huntington's disease is one of the examples where you have these CAG repeats which are keep on getting added in the sequence of the misfolded protein. Yeah. So now the job is for any chaperone to help the protein to fold properly. So to basically travel in this energy landscape diagram in order to achieve this stable oligomeric conformation. And where does the pharmacological chaperones come into place is they basically bind this unfolded or the misfolded conformations, and they basically try to stabilize the protein. So when we revisit this site where the protein is still misfolded, and basically what it needs is it needs some additional time in order to fold properly. So you have this non-specific chaperones like calnexin or the heat shock proteins from the cytosol, which are generic. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to help every single molecule which is trying to get folded properly. Now the pharmacological chaperones, so these are the drug molecules and they're highly specific for a given protein. So we are trying to rescue one of the proteins which is of interest. And what they do is they bind this misfolded conformation or this intermediate state during the folding trajectory, and they stabilize the conformation in order to have this final product. Yeah. So we are trying to see if there is a protein which is basically still bound to this quality control mechanisms. Can they be rescued by using pharmacological means? And in order to see that, so there are two approaches one could think of. So one of the approach could be if we can relax the quality control steps. Yeah. So we basically try to reduce the quality checks which are in there. So that's one way of looking at it. The another way would be to stabilize the proteins using the specific drug molecules, which will bind and stabilize the conformation in order to have the oligomerized state. Yeah. So I will switch gears a bit, and I will be talking about some of the transporters. So when we talk
Can
about
you just
pharmacology,
increase the volume from your system? I think you can
am I not?
somewhat louder. You
Hello?
can go ahead.
Is it louder?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. So when we talk, so I'll be switching gears and I will be talking about transporters. In pharmacology, so you might have heard about the G protein coupled receptor. So these are the GPCR proteins. And the second family of the proteins, which are also equally important, but doesn't get much appreciation, is this transporters. So we'll be talking about the solute carriers family of the transporters. So there are around 65 families till date which have been discovered, and they carry more than 400 transporters. And these proteins, yeah, so the ones that you see in the block, so they do a lot of things. So they're involved in the trafficking of these nutrients, metabolites, and in some cases also the drug molecules. And as I said, so every single cell needs a transporter. So it's like a house, and of course you need to bring in the raw ingredients, of course, which can be cooked, getting processed, and of course one has to then throw the garbage. Yeah? So every single cell needs transporters in order to survive. And what we do know is there are around 200 of the solute carrier family of the proteins which are implicated in the diseases. So pre-2000 era, so we were discussing the Mendelian diseases, where as a result of a single point mutation, so one has to see the pathology. So these were the ones which were easy to recognize. But after 2002, when we have the human genome now available, so it's much easier to see all these mutations which are getting involved in different diseases. One of the interesting aspects of the modern medicine is that the exome sequencing is getting cheaper and cheaper. So as a result, we understand all these molecular aspects in much more details. Yeah. So I will be focusing on a group of proteins from this solute carrier family. So it's this SLC6 families. Yeah. So this solute carrier 6 family of the transporters, or they're typically called as the neurotransmitter transporters. So these are the proteins, and some of them are, okay, one second. Yeah. So some of these proteins are well known as a drug target. So you have dopamine transporter, there's a norepinephrine transporter, there's serotonin transporter. So these are quite critical when we consider different pharmacological agents. So these are the monoamines, which forms the niche of these SLC6 family. There are other proteins as well, which are involved in synthesis, reuptake of the GABA. So you have creatine, taurine, and different GABA transporters. And there are a group of orphan or amino acid transporters which are also playing a role. So in today's talk, we will be specifically focusing on the DART, the dopamine transporter. There will be some emphasis on the creatine transporter and the serotonin transporter. Yeah, but the ones which are in the red, so these are the ones which we typically work with in Vienna. So when we talk about a protein, so the most important thing about these proteins is to know the structure. Yeah. So in the case, so we are quite lucky to have this crystal structure. So this, what you see is the Drosophila dopamine transporter in the picture. And so this, what is interesting here is, so since we have the structure, we understand different aspects which are there. And this protein, so these are basically 12 transmembrane domain structures. So you have this 12 transmembrane domain and the cytoplasmic N and the C loop, yeah, which carries different motifs for the cell signaling. Yeah. And these proteins, so as shown here, so they are symporters for sodium. And what they typically do is, so when one or two sodium ions, depending on which transporter it is, so along with these two sodium ions comes this neurotransmitter. So if it's a dopamine transporter, along with two sodium ions, the dopamine will be getting inside. The transporter is also coupled to chloride ion channel, and the potassium will be kicked out, yeah, to maintain the stoichiometry. So since we had a lot of crystal structures available from this parent structure, which comes from the leucine transporter, so this alternating access model was basically hypothesized in 60s, and then it was proven in the coming years. So what this model tells us is how does this protein functions in general. Yeah. So once you understand the crystal structure of the protein, once you see the snapshots of this crystal structure in different conformational states, so you can run the movie for yourself, and the movie looks like this, where the protein is in action. And if you start from this conformational state, so it's outward open conformation where the two sodium ions can bind, and as a result the substrate could also bind, and this from outward open gets into the outward occluded conformation, and then there's a change around 30-degree movement, as a result of which the substrate, which is neurotransmitter, is accessible now to getting inside the cell. Yeah. So once inside, this cycle gets back into the original state where it faces the outward open state, and this process is galvanized by the entry of potassium. Yeah. So as soon as the potassium binds, basically it gets back to this outward facing state. Now the outward facing state is the default conformation, and the result of which is you have extracellular sodium ion concentration pretty high. And if the protein is on the surface, then at the end of the day, it's going to be facing the, it will be stabilized in this outward open state. Yeah. Now the box that you see here, so this is what we think is going on. So we think that if we target this inward facing state by a drug molecule, then we are able to somehow stabilize the conformational states, and we are able to stabilize this misfolded protein. The reason we believe so is because you'll be hearing in the upcoming slides. So we have a drug molecule which is known to stabilize this conformational state, which acts as a pharmacochaperone. Now talking about this protein and where does this protein sits? Yeah. So this protein sits in the presynaptic site. So it's not exactly at the active site, but it's slightly adjacent to this active site. And so there it does its job by reuptaking the neurotransmitter. So in a given neuron, if there is a action potential event, so what will happen is typically the neurotransmitter, which is packed into these vesicles, will be released, and they will act on the respective receptors which are postsynaptic, and the excess of this neurotransmitter, which is not required, is then reuptaken by the presynaptic cell, yeah, or the extrasynaptic, depending on where this transporter is positioned. So they are also positioned at the somatic sites, at the dendrites, and they are involved in reuptake of the neurotransmitter, and they work in relay with this vesicular monoamine transporter, in order to replenish the vesicles. So for a cell, it's quite normal to basically reuse what's there, because at the end of the day, we all want to conserve the energy. Yeah, and they two work quite well hand in hand, and they do the refilling job quite well. So coming back to the model, and what does it mean for us? Yeah, so we discussed about the Sex61 translocon. It docks, it allows the nascent folding of the protein to be done at the endoplasmic reticulum. You had this quality control steps like the calnexin, the heat shock protein, and now we discuss if there is a protein which harbors a mutation, and as a result of which it's having folding issues, and it stays bound to this one of the chaperones. Yeah, so what to do with it? So can we stabilize the protein by using pharmacological chaperones which will stabilize the protein further, or is it possible to somehow cheat a bit? So we use this drugs which can relax the quality control process such that the protein can reach to the membrane. Yeah. So here you see one such example. So this is the pifitrin mu. So it's an inhibitor of heat shock protein 70. So what it will do is it will inhibit this relay, and as a result, the quality control which is coming from this heat shock relay will be relaxed a little bit. You can also have drug molecules that you'll be hearing in the upcoming slide, such as noribogaine, which is a metabolite of ibogaine, and what it does is it binds to the monoamine transporters, typically the serotonin and a dopamine transporter, and it locks the conformation in the inward facing state. So this binding is reversible, but what typically is happening is the protein gets additional time in the ER to be folded properly, and if it is folded properly, it can come out in a natively folded state. Yeah. So basically, what this is what we propose. So one can actually relax the quality control step by introducing drugs which inhibit this association of the quality control chaperones, and or one could actually use pharmacological drugs which bind and stabilize this intermediate state of the protein folding. Yeah, and we were able to validate this hypothesis in a number of publications. So now moving on to one classical study, because the theory looks good, but now we move a bit towards the results, and we talk about a sleepless fly. Yeah, so this is how I started my PhD work, and fortunately I'm still able to do some of this cool stuff that you see. And so we'll be talking some of the flies. Yeah, so these are the Drosophila melanogaster. So these are the fruit flies one typically finds on mangoes and bananas, and they're the annoying creatures, if I could say so. If you see one in the house, the immediate action is to kill one, yeah, because you don't like them. So what these flies they do typically is they like to eat the fermented food, and they like to sleep around 16 hours a day. Yeah, so unlike us who have to work, and yeah, we at the job do the things and basically earn the bread and then eat. These flies, they eat a pre-fermented food, and as a result of which basically they can afford to sleep a longer times. Yeah, so now we had so in Charles Zucker in I think early 2000 created a lot of flies by using methyl sulfonate. So basically this is a mutagenic agent, and if you feed these flies this EMS, it creates random mutations. Yeah, and so this one group of Amita Sehgal in Philadelphia, so they screened a number of such flies, and basically they found one peculiar fly. Yeah, so this fly only slept around 4 to 5 hours, and this was quite an intriguing observation. So typically they should sleep longer, but these flies they slept little less. Yeah, and now when they sequenced this fly, they found that there is a mutation, a point mutation in the dopamine transporter, and the location sits here, so in the red. So this is now the glycine 108. So you can imagine this is a highly packed structure, and in helix, this alpha helix, you have this GIIX motifs. So these are the glycines which help the protein to be packed in a compact structure, And this compactness is quite important because the protein is a 3D structure, and in 2D everything looks good, but at the end of the day it has to form these active sites, and all these transmembrane domains, they are packed quite nicely. So now instead of this glycine, this fly was interestingly harboring a glutamine. Yeah, so it's a single point mutation, and as a result of which the fly showed a null phenotype, because interestingly we also have another fruit fly in the lab, and this fruit fly does not have functional dopamine transporter, and this fly looks exactly like this. So they also sleep less, they're quite hyperactive. So interestingly, as a result of this point mutation, we observed this loss of function phenotype here. So now we had this interesting candidate in hands. So the first question that we asked is it a loss of function mutation? Yeah. So now to ask this question, we went back to the cells. So this is a photo I got for the hex cells, but typically these are the cells. That's how they look under the light microscope with higher magnification. And what we typically do is, so if you want to ask if the protein is functional, you take this protein in this in vitro system, and basically you transfect the cells with this protein. And since it's a transporter, and the job of a transporter is to transport the neurotransmitter back into the cell. So this is the typical assay that we see. So to walk you briefly with this assay. So this is a cell. Imagine this is a hex cell, and this cell expresses this transporter protein, the monoamine transporter, and we have this radio labeled. So it's typically tritiated dopamine or tritiated serotonin, and in this context, it's tritiated dopamine. And so we put the cells in a buffer, which has this tritiated substance, and if the cell is still alive, and if the transporter is still doing its job, then basically the tritiated neurotransmitter will be uptaken by the cells. And basically what we do is we watch the cells, and we then measure the radioactivity using a scintillation counter. Yeah. So this is the typical assay in order to see the functionality of the protein, the transporter. And when we did that, we found that there was a very marginal or almost no uptake. Yeah. So we looked at it, the human variant of G100Q. So the equivalent would be the human G140Q. And when we do this mutation, we are not able to see any measurable uptake. And when we looked at the confocal images, so in a wild type scenario, so this is how this is a protein which is YFP tagged. So it's a fused protein. So the transporter reached quite nicely on the surface. And here the ER is labeled by calnexin. So calnexin is a ER resident chaperone, and the cell membrane is delineated by trypan blue. Yeah. So these are the live hex cells, and where do we see the protein? So if it's a fully folded protein, so the wild type protein does reach to the plasma membrane, whereas if it's a G100Q mutant harboring protein, it's basically colocalizes quite nicely with the calnexin, which means that the protein is still stuck in the ER. Yeah. So basically we understood that it's a loss of function phenotype that we see, and the protein is not on the surface, and even if it is, it's not functional. And then we did the imaging to see where exactly it is stuck. Yeah. So the protein is stuck in the trafficking state. So basically it's a trafficking mutant. And since it's retained in the ER, it's not functional. Yeah. So now when we did some molecular dynamic simulations, so this is the molecular dynamic simulation with the PC as the membrane. So this is the position here. So this is the transmembrane 3 where you have the glutamine instead of glycine. And if you see here, so the green ribbons of this structure represents the crystal structure of the dopamine transporter. And in the blue that you see is the homology model. So if a glycine is there, this is how typically it looks like. So the molecular dynamic simulations are quite nicely matched with the crystal structure. Now, if you mutate this to glutamine, there's a shift. As a result of this, the transmembrane domain 12 gets shifted a bit, and the molecular dynamic simulations showed that it basically changes the dynamics of accessibility to the water, because this thing sits quite near to the membrane, and how much water molecules are allowed basically is changing. Yeah, and as a result of which it could be that this notorious misfolded protein harboring the mutation is still retained at the ER. So I remind you, so this all these neurotransmitter transporter mutations, so they are basically harboring at the very early stage of life. So we are talking about patients who suffer from this. You'll be hearing in the upcoming slides. So all these patients, they are from infantile and juvenile cohort. Yeah, so they're quite young. So we are talking a scenario in a young adult where the quality control steps, these are quite rigorous. So these mechanisms, they work quite well, and sometimes you have to relax them because they're working too efficiently. Yeah, and as a result of which a point mutation which is quite away from the active sites. So this is the nortriptyline, which is bound. So this is the active binding pocket. These are the sodium ions which are bound. So this is the active site, yeah, of the transporter. So if the active site is still intact, and if there is a point mutation which is away from this active site, this protein is still retained since there are quite nice quality control steps. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's a bit troublesome. Yeah. So we revisit this scenario and we ask if we somehow relax this quality control step. So we introduced pifitrin mu, which is inhibiting this HSP70 association, and we introduced noribugen. Yeah. So what this drug will do is it will bind to the protein in inward facing state, and as a result, it will stabilize the conformation in order to achieve the natively folded state. Yeah. So we asked a question, can these two drugs act as a chaperone? Yeah. And can they rescue this misfolded protein? And this is what we see. So this is a wild type scenario. So also in the wild type, you see slight increase in some instances when they have been treated with pharmacochaperones, because as I said, so not all the proteins are natively folded, even in the wild type scenario. And in the case of mutant, so this was functionally dead, you start to see some measurable uptake. So I remind you that the axis is quite different. So we see a rescue, but it's a marginal rescue. Yeah. So a mature protein shows a mature glycosylated band. So basically, if the protein is folded at the ER and if it is exported from ER to Golgi, so in the Golgi apparatus, this is typically the post translational modifications. So they are taking place, and this mature glycosylation, which is happening on the extracellular loop 2 of this protein, so they form this mature band, and we try to see this, and we see some measurable band starts to appear when we use different pharmacochaperones. Yeah, so we do see some measurable uptake. So how interesting could it be, because this looks quite insignificant when we compare it to the wild type, and we ask this question, can we make these flies which are sleepless, can we make them sleep? Yeah, so this is time in minute, and basically we go on increasing the concentration of noribugen, which basically binds to the transporter and stabilizes it. And then we also introduce this in the system pifitrin, which is an inhibitor of the HSP70. So here we are trying to relax the quality control step, and here we are trying to introduce a drug which will basically stabilize the conformation. And you see a dose dependent effect in this context. So basically the fly is able to get back to its sleeping state. So it's in minutes. So this is around the 16-hour time point. So the fly is able to sleep. So the sleep does get restored. And this is also the case with the pifitrin mu. Yeah. So as a result of the treatment with these drugs, basically we are able to restore the sleep. So although this is not exactly significant in the hex cell context, when it comes to neurons, so having small quantity of the functional protein does the job. Yeah. So it's also known that for other proteins, having just 5 to 10% of the functional proteins can still basically restore the normal functioning. Yeah. So the system can adapt quite well. So this all looks good. So we are able to make fly sleep. And one more slide. So this is so since the transgenic system of the flies is quite advanced, and with the genetics, one could actually visualize a lot of cool stuff. So here I will quickly introduce the GAL4 US system. So in this system, basically you have the GAL4 is driving the expression of whatever is there after the upstream activating sequence is a transcription factor. And if you cross these two flies, basically you can actually visualize the protein of interest in a GAL4 dependent manner, and the GAL4 is expressed in a tissue or cell specific manner. Yeah. So here we use tyrosine hydroxylase GAL4. So since the fly does not have epinephrine or norepinephrine, this protein is expressed exclusively in the dopaminergic neurons. And here you see some of the dopaminergic cells in the fly brain. This is the adult fly brain, and this is the presynaptic site. So basically, in the case of the wild type human dopamine transporter, we are able to see it in the cell bodies, and it also reaches quite nicely in the presynaptic site. And in the case of mutation, so this is the equivalent of G108Q. It's not there in the presynaptic site. But if we try to treat the flies from the larval stage or from the adult stage, we try to see it does appear in appreciable levels. And this could very well be the reason why we see the rescue in the sleep pattern. Yeah. So we have this nice in vitro, in vivo scenario, and we are able to make the fly sleep. Yeah. But now the question is, what does it mean? Yeah. What significance does it have? So of course, so these are the SLC6 transporters, and they do carry mutations, and these are associated or linked with different diseases. So talking about, for example, the dopamine transporter, so it's associated with the dopamine transporter deficiency syndrome, all these mutations, and it's also associated with the ADHD. Yeah. So I'll be talking first about the DART. So you have seen one classical example, and you will see now the snapshot of results. Because we try to recapitulate what we saw in a disease relevant manner. Yeah. So now you see here, so this is a subject, and so this video is from the lab of Manju Kurian in the UCL. And so this individual is suffering from the dopamine transporter deficiency syndrome. So here the person is not able to have the voluntary movements. So it's a Parkinsonian phenotype where you see these jerk movements, and the person is not able to control the limbs. And there's a point mutations, and these are the point mutations that you see in the magenta spheres. And basically, as a result of these point mutations, which are basically identified after exome sequencing, a person suffers from this transporter deficiency. Unfortunately, the transporter deficiency syndrome results in early lethality. So all the individuals, they typically do not survive after 13 or 14 as a result of these point mutations. And so unfortunately, there is no therapy as of yet. And all these point mutations, basically, they leave the transporter non-functional. So since now these days the exome sequencing is getting cost effective, we are able to identify all these point mutations which are leading to disease. So we are going towards more personalized therapy in this context. And basically the fly that you saw, which was able to sleep now as a result of drug treatment. Now the question that we asked is, can we somehow use the same approach on any of these disease causing mutations? And is it possible basically to make the fly sleep again, or to allow this pharmacochaperoning in cells? And more importantly, the ultimate goal will be to basically treat the patients which are suffering from these folding disorders. And all the orange and the red squares that you see, so these are the ones that we were able to successfully rescue in vitro, and some of them in vivo system. And I will walk you through one of the examples. So all these mutations, so when we do the uptake assay in the hex cells, we see that they're all loss of function. So all the transporter mutations, at least in the case of dopamine transporter that we observed here on this, what you can see on this homology model based on the Drosophila DART, is they're all loss of function, and basically the protein is still retained in the ER. Yeah. And here you see the same drugs, the pifitrin mu and the noribogaine. And as a treatment of the wild type, you can see there's an increase. And here you see increase in uptake. So basically we are also restoring some of the wild type transporter function. And here you see one case of this mutation, V158F. And as a result of this point mutation, basically the functionality of the transporter is quite minimal, but we are able to restore it to respectable levels. And in the flies, I'm able to restore the sleep time of fly when it's treated with pifitrin and noripocaine. Yeah, so here you see just an example of pifitrin, but we're also able to see the same effect with noripocaine. So this looks quite good. Now the question is, can we broaden the horizons a bit? Because we started with the dart, we started with the sleepless fly, we tried to make it sleep, it worked. We talked about some of the mutations which are disease causing, and this approach looks quite good with the dopamine transporter. But of course, we are not exactly limited by treating one transporter. What we do is it universal, yeah. So we talk about another situation with the creatine transporter, and in the case of creatine transporter, a mutation, so these are, so in the orange or golden spears that you see, so these are all point mutations. And if you remember even the previous homology model, so what's clear is that these mutations, they are actually sitting on the junction between the lipid and the protein interface, yeah. So they are at the interface, and these mutations is actually somehow affecting the folding process of the protein, yeah. So talking about the creatine deficiency syndrome, so basically this syndrome is observed as a result of mutations of these three different components. So you have this AGAT and GAMT, which is involved in the synthesis of creatine, and these are autosomal recessive disorders. And you have also the X-linked creatine transporter deficiency, which is a result of or attributed to one of the point mutations that you see here. And the symptoms are classical. So you see seizures, you see behavioral disorders, intellectual disability, there's a delay in speech, there are digestive problems, and of course there are some movement problems. So to varying extent, one sees these symptoms, but they are all there and they're quite common in all three scenarios. So basically the brain does need creatine, and the only way the brain can get the creatine is via the transporter, yeah. And as a result of these point mutations, one suffers from this creatine transporter deficiency syndrome. And now we revisit and we ask in hex cells, how does this protein looks like, yeah. And if you see the squares, the unfilled square, basically here the wild type creatine that you see, and we are able to see the uptake, it's measurable for the wild type. But when it comes to the mutants, so you see almost no to marginal uptake, yeah, in the case of the misfolded proteins. And we asked a question that so I don't show here the confocal images, but again with the confocal images we were able to see that it's a trafficking defect. And as a result of trafficking defect, most of these transporters, they're still retained in the ER. And we asked if we can relax the quality control, can we rescue these misfolded proteins? And in our hands, the pifitrin new strategy didn't work, but we also tried this universal chaperone, this 4-phenyl butyrate, and this worked quite well, yeah. So we are able to see some measurable uptake in some of these mutants. So the ones which are in the red squares, so these are the cases where we are able to see some measurable uptake. And this is also the case when we look at the confocal images, where normally the protein does reach to the surface at the plasma membrane. And you can also appreciate that after the treatment, you see a bit more, yeah, which is very close to the surface. So this is typically the scenario that we see for the wild type. And in the case of mutants, so they does start to come on the surface after the 4-PBA treatment, yeah. One of the nicest things about the 4-phenyl butyrate is it's approved to be used in patients and also in children. So here comes the question of the drug repurposing, because the drug has already been through the rigorous process of clinical trials, and basically now it's also available for different clinical implications, yeah. So now this all looks good. So we are able to see some cases where we are able to rescue the misfolded dopamine transporter mutants or variants. We are able to rescue some of the creatine transporter variants. But is it possible, yeah, to create a drug screen? And is it possible basically to have a unique situation from where we can find the answers? And we do that with the serotonin transporter. So this is one of the proteins which I talked least about or didn't talk at all till this point. But this is the one which has been studied quite extensively when it comes to the folding trajectory. So we do understand a few things. what's going on with this protein. And we have this classical mutation. So this is the crystal structure of the serotonin transporter. And here you see a point mutation here. So in the place of proline and glycine, which sits here in the C-terminal tail, so we replace it with alanine. And as a result of this, basically the protein, which should be showing staining, colocalizing with the trypan blue, meaning it's on the surface. As a result of this point mutation, it stays retained in the ER. Yeah, so it's not basically colocalizing with the trypan blue. And now, when we treat it with noribogaine, the one that you heard before, basically it does quite nicely reach to the surface. And this is also the evident with the Western blot. So you see this core glycosylated band, which you see when the protein is stuck in the ER. And when the protein comes out of the ER and reaches the Golgi, it starts to develop this mature band. Yeah. So basically we start to appreciate that the protein is now coming out and the protein is functional. Yeah. So basically we ask, using this mutant, what are the other approaches or avenues, yeah, that one can use. So this is like a test tube for us, and we try to screen a number of compounds, and some of them are also designed by hopefully AI in the future, where there is some cues coming from the artificial intelligence in order to understand how does the protein fold. And basically we have, in addition to noribogaine, some additional compounds which works quite well, and we are in the process of screening more such compounds. Yeah, so we've identified some of them. This is the compound 9B. This compound was discovered by my colleague Shreyas, and this work was done with collaboration of NIH. And so the future prospects, what it stands is, so we are interested in screening more novel compounds. So the goal here is to find drugs which can rescue most of the misfolded proteins. And if these proteins, if they are trafficking mutants, meaning the protein can be functional, but it's retained in the ER as a result of folding defects, could it be made functional by bringing it on the surface, by either giving the protein to some additional time to fold properly, or by relaxing the quality control steps. So by doing such steps, is it possible to bring all these misfolded proteins on the surface? Yeah, so that's the job. That's what we are interested in looking at. So what we learned today is this protein folding, at least in the case of this SLC6 family of transporters. So these trafficking defective proteins, so they lead to some pathological states. And basically, I show you this COP2 chaperone model, where we say that the pharmacochaperones can be used in order to remedy these misfolded proteins. And basically, this approach provides a optimistic outlook for this folding disorders, where the protein is folded properly, but at the same time, it has some point mutations, and as a result of which it's retained at the ER. And the question is, can we bring it on the surface? Yeah. So this approach, so far in our hands, look quite optimistic. And I guess that this is it. And I would like to thank my former lab where I did my PhD with Professor Freismuth and Dr. Sonia Sucic. And I'm also thankful to all the colleagues who contributed to this work. So this work that you see is actually something I have been doing since 2014, and it's still an ongoing process. And I'm currently employed at the University of Vienna, and I work with Professor Thomas Hummel. And so these are some of the people who are also contributing in the present work. And so these are the funding agencies, yeah, which fund our work. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for being patient, and I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. May, for a detailed presentation at the molecular pharmacology level. Your passion to do the things at molecular level. Now I request all the delegates, the session is open for the question answer if they are having any queries. Even I just personally wanted to know, May, so what type of opportunities are there in the University of Vienna and other things for the upcoming pharmacologists from the pharmaceutical institutions or the new teacher delegates were there from the pharmacology background. So because you have got a very good opportunity to work in such a reputed university and from long you are working. I welcome Dr. Kasture sir also.
I mean, so there are opportunities, of course, and I would say there are also these PhD programs. So these are structured PhD programs. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the cell communication in health and disease PhD program, and it's actually a very nice path. I mean, we all know the USA receives great attention when it comes to science and research, but at the same time, there are places in Europe. So I mean, Vienna is of course one of them, which also has very nice PhD programs. So these are structured and well funded. One of the nicest things is so the fee is quite minimum in Europe as compared to the US. And once you're part of this PhD program, yeah, so it's more of a chaperone effect, yeah. So you are quite well guided by very qualified yeah, staff. So I mean, I'll be happy if anyone wants to have additional questions, yeah, to guide through.
Okay, thank you.
So if there are no additional questions, so I'm thankful to the QIP team and for giving me the
Michael
opportunity to
has
speak with
mentioned
you.
a very informative presentation. Other delegates are also mentioning that thanks for the nice presentation.
Thank you.
Anybody wants to ask or suggest something?
If you have any burning questions later, you can always send me an email. I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be always in touch with you. Thank you for
So
very
can,
nice.
can you share your email ID for future communication?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
Amazing. Please, Mittal sir is asking.
Sorry.
Mittal sir is asking for your mail ID.
Okay, I'll share it with the
Chat
I
box.
think
You can.
yeah,
You can,
I'll do that. Yeah. Okay.
Chat box. You can type it so that every
Okay.
delegate can be in touch with you to
Okay.
know more about pharmacological aspects and the opportunities if there are. And next time, whenever you come to India, do visit DIPSAR.
Yes, definitely.
Happy to listen to you again and discuss personally at various platforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mittal sir.
Sir, the certificate is displayed.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, Mittal sir, you would like to ask something?
So the email ID, can you share it on the chat box so we can save it?
Yes. Yeah, so that's.
Yeah, it is there.
I was interested in seeing if we in South Gujarat there is a lot of patients with sickle cell anemia. So I was interested if this approach can be used for these patients as well. But then that's a lengthy discussion, so probably some other time. That's why I wanted the email ID.
Okay, definitely.
So here is the
Thank you.
certificate, e-certificate for Dr. Ame. Please accept it.
Thank you very much.
Vice Chancellor DIPSAR and Team QIP. Please. And thank you once again. Thank you very much. Would you like to give any instructions to the delegates for the postal session?
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank the chairperson and the moderator for the morning half, and also the resource person, Dr. Sanjay, for taking out this precious time to be with us on this platform. And I'm sure the audience will appreciate the webinar given by Dr. Amey Kasture here. And Dr. Ame, I just wanted to ask you a question here, that how do you see that simple, how can this kind of work be taken up as a low cost, on a low cost or low budget thing? How can you, redefine these kind of studies for, say, an Indian setup.
So I mean here, exactly. So I mean, so here we ask this interesting question in this model organism, and so the most important aspect is the cost effectiveness, as you said. Yeah, I mean here this is where the Drosophila as a model organism comes in picture, because managing the flies is Drosophila is one of the cheapest organisms one can cultivate and do the husbandry for. Also, what is important is the availability of the genetic tools. So I have to say, if the weather stays consistent, then Drosophila is one of the easiest organisms. Yeah, and the work is quite low cost, since you don't have to maintain uh, additional, say, what is the right word here? So in the cell culture, everything is autoclaved, and you have to maintain certain degree of quality. Yeah, and all the assays that we do in vitro in cells, so these are quite expensive if one has to play with radioactivity or the longer durations. So as a result, there are assays which can then be used with fluorescence, although the sensitivity of this assays is not as high as radioactivity, but that's where the fly model comes in picture. Yeah, so I mean in Indian setup this could be actually quite ideal. So there are a lot of nice labs in India which also work with flies, although the focus is a bit developmental. But I mean here I'm one of the few who is trying to push fly research, yeah, to be more central and more centered theme, where there are mechanisms and which are conserved throughout the evolution, and this is a simpler approach to understand all these the conserved aspects. Yeah, because most of the diseases, all these disease causing genes, so 75% of them are conserved in flies. So this is what we know. So I mean, maybe fly cannot give all the answers, but fly can simplify the future aspects for these diseases.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, I will thank the participants, the resource person, chairperson, and moderator. And I will see you soon at 2:30 with the next session. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.